Okay. Good evening. I'd like to call to order the November 6th Lake Washington School Board meeting. I'll entertain a motion to approve the November 6th agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Director LaLiberty, seconded by Director Bleasner. All those in favor, please signify by voting aye.
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 Aye. All those opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Dr. Pierce, will you please introduce our host school?
Yeah, we are so pleased tonight to have Explorer Community School here, who happens to have a beautiful new facility. And the wonderful Karen Barker, who's the principal, is here. So welcome, Karen, and she's got a team of folks here with her. And so I will just turn it right over to you.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much for having us.
There you go.
Thank you so much for having us. We are really excited to have this opportunity to tell all of you about our amazing Explorer Community School, as well as the results of our first bond project that was completed over the summer for our students to start the school year with. I'm Karen Barker, and I've been the principal at Explorer Community School for 7 years. Also here with me is Melissa Doring. She's the associate principal. And we have our teachers here as well. All three teachers are here present tonight. Speaking will be David Levitin. He's a 4th and 5th grade teacher. With him also is Deborah Shaw. She teaches a 2-3 multi-age, and Miss Kelsey Mailer is a 1-2 multi-age teacher. And so first, I want to tell you a little bit about our unique campus, because Explorer is a part of a larger overall campus out at Dickinson Elementary. At Dickinson, we have about 540 students, and they're served by about 70 staff members. Also out at Dickinson, you're probably well aware, we do have the Dickinson Preschool. This year we're serving about 130 students, and then we have about 32 staff members that work with our preschool students as well. So the third component of our campus is Explorer Community School. And Explorer has 72 students and 3 classroom teachers. And they're also served by the staff members and specialists over at Dickinson as well. So the mission of Explorer is to create a learning partnership amongst children, teachers, and parents. And the school teachers and parents are really intentional about how we go about doing that. How do we meet our mission? And so I would like for David Levitin to tell you a little bit about the unique focus of our school at Explorer.
Thank you, Karen. I love the term learning partnership. It represents our school so well. It is a little deceiving. You might not realize all that it entails, because it says among children, teachers, and parents, so you might think of kind of a triangle, kind of a unidirectional learning going on between these groups, but it's bidirectional. It's within each node. I'm constantly learning from my co-teachers. I'm learning from the students. I'm learning from the parents. And they're learning from me as well. We provide opportunities in a lot of different manners to emphasize this learning partnership. And here you see some of our parent-led activities. The students absolutely love these. We have both a regular hour session on a weekly basis and Friday afternoons, as well as a multi-week learning opportunity that's more extensive later in the year, that the parents lead directly with the students. I think we have an example here of a cooking class, as well as a ink and brush technique using Chinese calligraphy tools. Now, the learning partnership goes the other way as well, as I said. Here is one of my favorite projects we've done in the last few years, up in the upper left. What you see is, we do have a new school, and we're very grateful for it. And the students had an opportunity to think about, well, what would their new school be like if they had a choice of how to design it? They formed architecture teams, multi-age teams. We had students from each class, so they were a trio, a triad, I guess. And here, those students are actually teaching a parent about some of their design ideas. And in fact, some of the school staff from the Resource Center here came out and got to learn about some of the design ideas as well during that session of sharing. You also can see on the far right side one of the students' favorite learning opportunities, Marketplace. We have an academic focus that associates with that every year. The students create products, but they also learn about how to advertise, how to survey people that they might want to sell things to. And they integrate that work in with teaching each other great techniques. Our school also brings our learning opportunities outside of the classroom. We do a lot of field trips, but this has got to be one of our favorites. This is family camp. This is the entire community, not only the students and their parents, but even the siblings, younger and older. We have alumni. I can see one in the more close-up picture singing along with some of the songs she enjoyed and knew. And we come together every year at camp. That is a picture I just love. This is our 20-year learning celebration. And we delayed it by a year technically because we had it 2017. But the reason we did that is because we realized we're going to have this new school. And it's going to be so cool to share that with the whole community. And so we, just this past month, had a 20-year and new school celebration. I was hoping we'd get about 100 people there, and the turnout was just amazing. We have well over 200 families. All the way back to, as we said, the OGs of Explore. We had some parents and staff that were there the very first year that shared in that fantastic celebration. And it really just indicates the way Explore is not just a experience while you're there. It's something that stays with you. And the alumni that participated in putting that incredible event together, we still appreciate them. This is right down here, actually. If you get a chance, get a closer look at it. This was a community art project that we did during our 20-year celebration, and it's just another indication of the way we love to work together as a community. In the picture, I actually see alumni students, current students, a younger sibling, current parents, and alumni parent, and even the sibling of a student, and that sibling didn't attend the school, and she was welcome to participate in the project as well.
So high-quality teaching and learning are supported with daily parent volunteers to provide opportunities for differentiation and intervention at all levels. As a result, Explorer has consistently ranked amongst the highest-performing schools in Washington. Explorer has earned the Washington State Achievement Award for the past 7 years and has received the School of Distinction Award in 2014. In addition to the fact that nearly all students in grades 3 through 5 met grade level standard in reading, math, and science last year. 81% of students met level 4 in math. 84% of students met level 4 in English language arts. And 94% of students in 5th grade reached a level 4 in science. High academic achievement is not the sole focus of Explorer. The school remains consistently focused on ensuring they remain focused on all aspects of educating the whole child. As a part of our continuous improvement process this year, teachers are collaborating with our new full-time counselor to deliver the new Second Step curriculum weekly as a Tier 1 intervention in the general education classroom. And they are progress monitoring student growth in social emotional skills connected to our district student profile within a regular cycle of inquiry. Teachers at Explorer regularly also collaborate with grade level peers at Dickinson and participate in campus-wide leadership initiatives to ensure that the small school of Explorer continues to feel connected to the work of our whole campus. The teachers at Explorer have routinely sought opportunities to improve teaching and learning across schools through their leadership in professional learning activities and initiatives within the district. We really appreciate for the service of the Explorer teachers. I think that the work that they do really benefits us across our district, and they're really committed to that investment.
So, as Karen and David mentioned, we got a new school this year. We spent some time over the weekend moving in. Parents helped them to set up classrooms so that we were ready for the first day of students. If you've ever wondered what it looks like to see a bathroom suspended over a parking lot during a solar eclipse. Now you know. So we really wanted to just take another moment to thank the voters who approved the 2016 bond measure to make this possible for our students. And the 4 modular buildings have been built with green technology and are now an enclosed campus, which just makes it so much safer. Students don't have to walk up to the big building to use the restrooms. They have their own. And it's really a fantastic opportunity to create an outside learning space and to have an increased safety for our campus. So I'd like to show you a video that Explorer parents have created to show you all of the things that make Explorer great.
My favorite part of being an Explorer is every month we go on a very fun field trip.
Red light. Green light.
I really liked my school, Explorer.
Family camp because we get to sing songs around the campfire and do like lots of games.
On the mountain was a treasure buried deep beneath a stone. In the valley people swore they'd have it for.
Probably like family camp and really getting to like know people and like making really good friendships and stuff.
Go ahead and hate your neighbor.
Explorations and Friday Choice, those are all really fun.
My favorite part of being a student at Explorer was being involved in the community and having such close friends around me all the time. It was a really good experience, and I loved the teaching methods that the teachers used. We didn't just read everything out of a textbook. We actually had hands-on experiences while we were learning. Explorer prepared me for middle school by teaching me lots of different things in ways that I would remember.
I think almost everything about Explorer is unique. All the kids get to learn about what other people are passionate about and what's exciting to them, and it totally broadens their horizons. And I think that's really one of the unique things about Explorer.
We all came together as parents and families and kids, and really it was a big family. And it's the people, the parents who devote their time, the teachers who devote their time and energy to all these students and all these families. It all just come together. It makes it a big deal for me.
Explorer OG, an original gangsta. One of the first founding Explorer families. Please stay standing for us. Give these people a round of applause. Amazing families that work closely together with the teachers. They work together.
One tin soldier rides away. Now the valley cried with anger. Mount your horses, draw your swords, and they killed the mountain people. So they won their just reward. Now they stood beside.
All of you were able to be here. We are so thankful for this. And our new building. The building, though, is a nice validation for us, and we are really grateful for it. Our facility that we have is incredible. You guys, I hope all had a chance to take a look at it, and we are so grateful to the community for funding it and that we get to enjoy it. We have bathrooms. I mean, what's the deal with that?
And so finally, sharing the wonderful things about Explore would not be complete without highlighting our amazing partnership with our community members. First and foremost, our 3 lead teachers of Explore do amazing work, and as their principal, I could not be more proud or grateful to the work of these 3 teachers. Also, the second part of that partnership in our mission is the Explorer parents. They're in classrooms every day. They're organizing all of these events. They're supporting the teachers. They are nose to nose with kids, providing that support that really shows what parent collaboration can achieve through that effective partnership. Because again, the success of students at Explorer is a result of all of this partnership together. I also want to thank the Dickinson and Explorer PTSA. They provide leadership, support, and enrichment opportunities for all students, even the students at Explorer. And without that partnership, I think that the opportunities for Explorer students would be limited within such a small school setting. But with the inclusion of the Dickinson PTSA, it really does feel like they get that comprehensive neighborhood school experience as well. The Dickinson staff, specialists, therapists, the office staff, the recess teachers, they're all a part of supporting the success of Explorer, and I'm grateful to them. And then finally, the support of the district leadership. Sue Ann Sullivan, the director of school support, the superintendents and cabinet level people that support all of our work of our school, and you, the school board, providing the leadership and direction of our district. We are very grateful to you because it's really all of those pieces of the puzzle that put together the success of Explorer. Thank you.
Well, it's clear that you missed the old portables dreadfully.
You do.
All right. Well, that was actually lovely. Sorry, find my cheat sheet again. So, next we have, one of my favorites, the recognition of our National Merit semifinalists and commended scholars. So, Dr. Pierce.
Great. So again, just thank you to Karen and Melissa and Explorer staff and parents. Can you raise your hand if you're here from Explorer tonight? We've some parents in the house. That's awesome. Thank you so much. It was just great fun to hear all the wonderful things about the school. And as Chris mentioned, we now have recognition of students tonight, our National Merit finalists and commended scholars from International Community School, Eastlake High School, and Lake Washington High School. So we're going to start this evening with International Community School, and Principal Margaret Kinney is here. So Margaret, you can come on up to the podium here, and we look forward to meeting your ICS students.
Good evening. It's my pleasure to be here. If I have any ICS students, should they come up now?
That would be great.
Okay.
So typically what we'll have you do is, and because Margaret,
I'm
welcome.
first.
This is Margaret's first year as
Yes.
principal at ICS. Yes, and we have you going first. So we
Okay.
didn't even give you the benefit of letting Chris or Christina go first, who've done this before.
That's okay. I can do it. I can do it. So
That's great. So what we'll have you do is introduce them individually.
Okay.
We'll have you have them line up here, and then
Okay.
we typically give the microphone to the students, and they get to share with us what their potential future plans
Great.
are, and potentially
Great.
one of their best highlights of ICS.
Well,
Okay.
I am new to ICS, and so I've inherited these very talented young people, and I'm not responsible for their success at all. But I'm very, very lucky. Everyone at ICS is very proud of these students. Approximately 3.5 million students take the PSAT every year. For International Community School to have 4 National Merit semifinalists and 18 commended students is just outstanding. So I'm very proud. So if you're here from International Community School, why don't you come forward? Is there a handheld mic?
So, for the kids, and actually for you as well, basically, who are you? Where do you hope to go to college? What's your major? And 1-minute story about your favorite teacher. It doesn't have to be at ICS. It can be all the way back to kindergarten.
Okay. Hi, I'm Stephanie Fulton, and I'm applying to like 10 schools, but I think my top choices would either be like Claremont McKenna College or USC, and I hope to maybe major in international relations, possibly minor or double major with computer science, maybe linguistics. And my favorite teacher is actually from ICS, Mr. Over. He had to retire last year, so we were sad to see him go, but he was a very interesting character. He was a lawyer. He advised the mock trial team that I've been on for 4 years, and he would always just go off on these interesting tangents and had all these catchphrases and made learning very interesting and memorable.
Great.
Hi guys, my name is Anton. As far as future college plans, I would love to go to the University of Washington here, our local school, or the University of Denver all the way in Colorado. Possible majors, I'd like to major in business, maybe a minor or a double major in engineering with that. And my favorite teacher would also have to be an ICS teacher. Our art teacher in junior year in 8th grade, Mr. Rader. He's just such a great guy, such a genuine human being, really just a pleasure to learn from him and stuff. And while the class, it's not Common Core, it's not one of those subjects you would typically think would come in handy in college or whatever, but the lessons that we really learn there, just making personal connections with people and how to really express emotion through art, I think is something that's going to last with me for a long time.
Thank you. Thank you. You guys can sit down.
So, we usually will be recognizing parents, but I think that we've got a lot of parents, so we're going to save that for all 3 schools at the end. So with that.
Great. So our next school is Eastlake High School, and Chris Beatty is here, principal at Eastlake, to introduce the Eastlake High School students.
So if you're here from Eastlake High School, come on up, please. Just like Ms. Kinney, I'm very proud of the National Merit Semifinalists and Commended Scholars from Eastlake High School, but especially for the students who made the effort to come here tonight to be recognized. Your hard work, your efforts are very much appreciated, and we're very proud of you as a school and a school district. So I'm going to just pass the mic down. You can tell us your name, the colleges you'd like to go to, your possible major, and best educational experience or best teacher. Thanks.
All right, I'm Andy. I want to go to Columbia in New York for computer science. And my favorite experience was building hot air balloons in calculus. Thank you.
My name is Maggie. I would like to go to UChicago. And I'd like to double major in music and computer engineering. And my favorite educational experience would be, I went to a nanotech program at University of Pennsylvania this summer, and we essentially got to do undergrad and graduate level nanotechnology research and lab work. And it was just really cool to experience like a bit of college before actually going, and just to have like a really in-depth experience with science and engineering.
My name's Reagan, and I'm hoping to go to either UW or the University of Notre Dame to study biochemistry and possibly minor in Spanish. And my best educational experience to date was probably in my 4th grade teacher, Miss Romano, who really she helped me develop my love for math and science and helped me develop my leadership skills in the classroom and with my parents and stuff.
I'm Neha, and I'm hoping to go to UW and study computer science. And my best educational experience was probably taking AP Calc, because it was the first math class that actually challenged me, and I really liked my teacher.
My name is Lucas. I'm considering going to University of Washington. I'll likely be a psychology major, and probably my most influential educational experience has been Pull-Out Quest in elementary school. For those of you who don't know what that is, you'd go to a advanced program once a week, and you'd learn about various interesting topics. At a young age, we were introduced to things like architecture, like Newton's laws of physics, and all kinds of other cool stuff. It was a really great experience to learn about all that advanced stuff as a young kid.
Thank you very much.
Okay, and last but certainly not least, we have Lake Washington High School here, and Principal Christina Thomas is here this evening to introduce the Lake Washington High School students.
Thank you. Again, just like the other high school principals, we're all very proud of our scholar athletes and really want to acknowledge their parents and all the hard work the kids have put in. I don't know how many of mine are here tonight, but I do have 2 National Merit semifinalists and 7 commended scholars and 1 National Hispanic Recognition Scholar. So Lake Washington High School, come on down. Okay, so you know the drill, right?
Hopefully. Hi, my name is Sam Dorsey. I'm currently in the process of applying to the University of Washington, among a few other schools. And currently I'm planning to major in either political science or chemical engineering, but it's still kind of up in the air. And you said only 1 minute for favorite teacher? Anyway, for sophomore and junior year, I had the privilege of learning from Mr. Dave Hale. He was my chemistry teacher and then my AP chemistry teacher. And I was lucky enough to learn from a man who truly loves his subject and helped me foster love for it as well.
Hi, my name is Michelle, and I'm hoping to go to the University of Washington to study civil engineering. And one of my best educational experiences was taking AP World History with Mr. Dawson. I really enjoyed taking the mock trials because it really challenged me as a student.
Hi, my name is Grace. I'm currently in the process of applying to the University of Southern California, hopefully majoring in international relations or business. My favorite academic experience would have to be also AP World History with Mr. Dawson. He's just an all-around funny, great human being.
And I'm Helen Sayre. I'd like to go to the University of Michigan and study computer science and business, and I have to second what Sam said about starting my mornings with Dave Hale and AP Chemistry.
Fantastic. So now what I'd like to do is bring all the kids back up here, because you've got parents out there who are just dying to be proud of you. Get all the kids back up here. Everybody just spread out in front of us so that we aren't in every other pictures. And your parents can come up and take pictures of our National Merit semifinalists, etc. And to the extent that, yes, so there are probably going to be some parents who would like to take such pictures. Let's get those pictures. And also a round of applause from the kids for a support staff out there, whether it's teachers, parents, principals, etc. There's a lot of people who got you here. Let's give your parents particularly a round of applause. Okay, parents, if you haven't got your pictures, you should have moved faster. All right, they're teenagers. All right. So find another parent and share. And kids, make sure you do touch base with your principal. There is a pretty little document that goes along with this that you should probably take home with you. Is there anything else? That piece? Yeah. So the next on the agenda is our public comment. Our public comment tonight, there is going to be some public comment, but we also have some... We also have some high school students, and much as I love them learning civic engagement, if you're a high school student, it's a weeknight. Go home and do your homework. You're still juniors. You've still got to get into college. So we'll take a couple of minutes to, teachers. Exactly. Once we've got them out, then we'll get rolling with the public comment. And towards that end, sorry? It's about the right number. Anyway. So, welcome to a business meeting of the Lake Washington School Board. On a monthly basis, we do provide an opportunity for public comment. This is a period of time that is reserved for us to hear from the public. It's not a time for conversation. Conversation is something that takes place outside of our working meetings. There are multiple avenues for public comment. We've heard a number of emails. I suspect from the sign-in sheet that a number of the people, we're going to be hearing some of the similar things that we've heard on email. I'm very thankful that we have heard from you by email. I hate hearing from you for the first time when you show up to talk to us. This evening we won't respond directly. If you want to stick around until we take one of our breaks, then you're welcome to touch base with us in the hall. Typically, we allow up to 30 minutes on the agenda for public comment. At present, there are 11 people signed up, given that we allow 3 minutes per person. As long as we abide by the timeline, that's cool. So that'll help. There are a number of you who've signed up to speak on similar issues. I appreciate the value of multiple voices, but at the same time, saying the same thing to us 3 times for 3 minutes each doesn't help you make your point all that much. So if someone said something that that you were planning to say, go ahead and just say "me too." If there's more that you have to bring to that topic, then say more. But saying the same thing over and over really doesn't help you make your point, because some of us have jobs to get to in the morning. Now, the 3-minute time limit, if you haven't been here before, there's this lovely stoplight over there. The stoplight will be green when you're starting. When you start, come up to the mic in the middle, which is not currently hot, so if someone could turn that on, I'd appreciate it. Yeah, Matt, you got that? Great. Oh, did he turn it on? Okay, sorry, I don't see it from this angle. When you come up to the mic, please just tell us your name, your attendance area, and then you'll have 3 minutes to speak. After 2 minutes, the light's going to go yellow. After 3 minutes, it's going to go red. There will be a beep. When you get to 3 minutes, it's time to roll it up. I try to be as polite as I can, but eventually I will use the gavel. In order to ensure that we hear from a variety of people, you can't donate your time to another speaker. That is, you have your 3 minutes. You can't put someone up there and have them speak for 9 minutes and say, oh, these are 3 people represented by this person who was brave enough to face the microphone. There is a certain amount of bravery in this. I acknowledge that. This is how I started my relationship with school board, is by providing public comment. So I have a great amount of respect for those of you who are coming here. Now, when your name is called, please do come up, speak into the microphone. Now, keep in mind, this is it's not only a public meeting, it's a recorded meeting that's made available publicly. You are on TV, so to speak, with a very narrow but very interested audience. And you are on the internet for time immemorial. So there are only a couple of things that we will not take public comment on. That is, we don't talk about HR. That is, you don't talk about named staff individually unless you're telling us exactly how wonderful and awesome that particular staff member is. Otherwise, try to keep above the fray. And also, audience members are expected to treat all attendees with respect and civility. Not that that's ever a problem. So the first person signed up to address the board this evening is Sabrina Miller. If you'll please come on up.
Thank you. I'm Sabrina Miller, and I in the Juanita Learning Community. I'm a parent and PTSA co-president at John Muir Elementary in Kirkland. I'm here to talk about the overcrowding issues John Muir is experiencing. I am aware that overcrowding is an issue throughout the district, but Muir is unique in many ways, and we need more space now, not later. After recent emails with the district, we do understand that there are plans in place for a portable at Muir next year. However, the Muir community is just finding this unacceptable. The district needs to re-examine our school's multiple requests for classroom space now and not wait until next year. We're now in the second year of using what was supposed to be a temporary floating classroom model for our kindergarten students. We have 72 kindergartners, enough to hire 4 teachers, but only have room for 3 dedicated classrooms. We have temporary cubicle walls in the opened, shared instructional space for our 4th kinder teacher to facilitate what the district considers to be small group instruction. However, this small group consists of 15 5- and 6-year-old children and is held in what truly is effectively the hallway due to the open design of our shared space areas. Muir is one of only 3 Title I schools in the district. Title I schools have a higher number of students that qualify and need additional academic support. Muir's student demographics require that we have 5 safety net teachers, whereas most schools have 1 at most. We also have 2 ELL teachers who work with over 25% of our students. These 7 teachers gave up one of their classrooms this year and now share a single classroom for all safety net and ELL services, which does impact over a third of our student population. We need learning space not only for our kinder students, but appropriate space for our students receiving ELL and safety net services, which is a much higher number than most elementary schools. Muir is the only Title I school that has not received approval to add portable classrooms when requested. Our school has functioned at 84% or greater building capacity for the past 2 years and above 74% for 4 years now. In comparison with other Title I schools within the Lake Washington School District, Einstein received a portable in 2010 when they reached 76% capacity. Frost received a portable in 2015 at 73% capacity. To compare within the Juanita learning community, Keller Elementary, who also opened a rebuild in 2012 like Muir, received a portable last year with their enrollment at 79% capacity. Muir Elementary has a clear, demonstrated need for additional classroom space now, not later. Muir's needs have been repeatedly overlooked during the process of how or why schools receive portable classrooms. On behalf of the families in PTSA, some of which are here tonight, at John Muir Elementary, I respectfully request that the Lake Washington School Board and district officials reevaluate Muir's urgent need for classroom space and find funding available to place 2 portable classrooms at Muir during this 2017-2018 school year. Thank you.
Well done on the 3 minutes. Thank you. Catherine O'Neill.
Hello, my name is Catherine O'Neill. I'm also from the Juanita learning area. And I'm a John Muir Elementary School parent with a 2nd grader. And my little one just starting her scholarly journey. She is in kindergarten. I must say I was shocked last year to see the floating classroom in the hallway set up outside the kindergarten classrooms. Upon further investigation this year, I was informed that our school had been without necessary portables for at least 2 years, although they had been requested for quite some time. I have been awestruck by the teamwork of the staff and teachers to make do in this substandard situation. However, a classroom in a hallway is a huge detriment to the children trying to focus and learn in that space, as well as students trying to focus and learn in the area surrounding that space. My 2nd grader has commented on hearing the students in the floating classroom. My kids call it the hallway classroom. And my kindergartner has commented on all the people that pass by as she's in her 15-person group trying to learn in this situation. Clearly, this space provides no semblance of a dedicated classroom. As you know, John Muir has a significant population of ELL and safety net students, and it makes me wonder, how would a child with any learning challenges focus in this current setup? How can students at JME succeed in this situation? With our uniquely diverse population, it does feel as though the school district and the school board have chosen to overlook our school. Is it possible that because the parents of JME do not communicate with the same veracity as parents from other schools, that we have just been pushed aside? I am here tonight with these other parents to be a voice for all of the parents, students, and the community members that cannot be here. I am standing here not just for my children, but for all JME students. With the hurdles many of our students have to overcome, They need the best learning environment, not in a year or a few years, but right now. As you all are the leaders in our richly diverse community, we look to you to advocate and act for those that cannot do so for themselves. I trust that you, our elected officials, will protect the education of the young people in our community. I hope you have not only heard what we have said, but will move to action for the students. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you. Now, Heather McCurley or McCuvely? Okay.
Hi, how are you all today? Good. I get emails from you guys regularly, so I feel like I know you all, but I'm sure you do not know me. What I'm here to speak about today is the boundary decision regarding the 232nd corridor, which is off of Union Hill. In our community, the boundary decision has become and marked our community into an island bounded by two sides by Dickinson and one sided by Alcott. In addition to losing our neighborhood to Dickinson, we also have several individuals or families that go to explore in the community, so we're also being split up from that area as well. So I trust that you guys, I know you guys have a hard job and it is a difficult decision, but I also want to make sure that I'm here personally and not just as a click from a survey or an email, but to let you guys know how this impacts us. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. So next we got Nate Snodgrass.
Hi, my name is Nate Snodgrass. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you all tonight. My daughter Eliana, my son Ethan, they both go to Dickinson Elementary. I'm also here to talk about the decision on the 232nd corridor, just as Heather was speaking. My wife volunteers at the school. She teaches Art Smart. My mother-in-law also volunteers at the school. I'm a watchdog. We also coach basketball and soccer for Dickinson, so we are extremely invested in the Dickinson community, and we hope we're still there when our littlest goes there as well. So we live in the same corridor as Heather. A little bit of background on it because I want to talk more about numbers. Ours is a small 35-house community as part of the larger 232nd corridor. Our corridor typically sends 10 students each to the different levels, so 10 to elementary, 10 to middle, 10 to high school, although it depends on how many high school students variance. Based on those numbers, we think we fit within the current capacity plans that we've seen for both Dickinson and Evergreen. So the 5-year numbers that I've seen would put Dickinson at 436 versus a capacity of 461, which we would fit within just fine. Evergreen, same story. Our neighborhood also is not growing, so unlike other neighborhoods within the area, there's a moratorium on subdivisions. So while you may see the occasional house pop up from an acre lot that gets cleared off, there's no new building happening, and if you ever look on Zillow, the houses aren't really selling either, so growth is actually slowing down rather than speeding up. Eastlake, I know, it's a problem. But our volume is basically a rounding error when you look at the overcrowding problem and the overall capacity of that school. When you talk 5 to 10 students, that's roughly 0.5% of the overall enrollment. And so you would move kids out of the schools that they attend now to trade 4 years of an overcrowding problem that this doesn't solve in exchange for 8 years where they can stay, 8 or 9 years where they can stay with their friends. Conversely, Regiment Ridge is blowing up. All you need to do is drive around there to see the growth. There's also a 481-unit multifamily housing project that's going in next to the school. Those of us in our community think you're under-projecting the volume that would go there, but nevertheless, I don't want to debate the numbers that you see with that, but what my point is more to say, we believe that we fit within the capacity plans for the schools that our kids are already going to. And we would plead with you to let us stay within those schools and not disrupt where our kids are going and the community they're involved in for what I don't believe and we don't believe is actually solving the real problem, which is the overcrowding at Eastlake. I think we need to come up with a real solution for that problem, and I think we have the time to do it. Look, I don't envy your job. I know it's hard. You have a bunch of different parents like myself coming up to tell us how you're doing your job wrong and that you need to go with what we want. So we appreciate the time and the consideration, and we look forward to the decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Erin Snodgrass?
Hi, I'm Erin Snodgrass, and this is my uniform because I just got done coaching kindergarten basketball. And so in using the same adage that I do with my son, I'm still proud of you as long as you've given your best. I'm here to kind of give my best. So if they ask me, well, why do we have to switch schools? I'll say, well, I tried my hardest, so that's why I'm here tonight. Anyway, along with Heather and Nate's opinions about we're right now at Dickinson, we're off 232nd in the 232nd corridor. I just wanted to touch base on the mileage and the distance. So currently, if we were to go to the new Redmond Ridge Elementary School, that's actually the fourth closest or furthest away school for us. First is Dickinson is closest, second Rosa Parks, third Alcott, fourth is the new Redmond Ridge Elementary School. And so I've driven it, and it's taken 11 minutes to the new Redmond Ridge Elementary School. It takes me 6 minutes to Dickinson, and the mileage is actually 2.4 from my house to Dickinson, and it's 4.5 to Redmond Ridge East. It's just a really back route because there's no direct way from Union Hill. So our concern is now they are a 30-minute bus ride to Dickinson. What would it look like to the new Redmond Ridge East given the bus driver shortages, and some bus drivers are driving two routes, and now we're almost double the mileage away. So that's one of the concerns. And then the addition is that when they're so far away, we touched on the community piece, but basically they leave and then they never, after school, they won't see anyone else from their school community near their home at all, because we will literally be surrounded by Dickinson, Alcott, and Rosa Parks. So our last ask is if we cannot be at Dickinson, we would love to be at Rosa Parks because we can at least create some sort of community there, either through there's walking trails we can get to Rosa Parks from, there's we ride our bikes through there, there's people we can see, we can actually get to the school on foot. So that's our ask if we can't be at Dickinson, that we're somewhere close within that top 3 distance. So thanks so much. I do not envy your job, and I appreciate your listening. Thank you.
Thank you. Just to finish the 232nd corridor, I'm going to move Molly Novak up. Molly?
Good evening. I am Molly Novak. I'm the mother of 6 boys, and I have been at Dickinson for the last 4 years. I have 13 more years in the elementary school system. 3 of the last 3 years I have been spent in countless hours leading the Dickinson Explorer PTSA as president and executive vice president. I'm here to talk to you about my concerns regarding the proposed boundaries around 232nd community. With the given proposals, we are being sent to the new Redmond Ridge Elementary School, which will require our children to be bused past Rosa Parks. And I'm asking you to rethink our placement and consider Rosa Parks if Dickinson is not available, or if Dickinson's not available. We know it's possible, as it was an option proposed in option B. The closest park to us is in Redmond Ridge. We often find ourselves playing with children from Rosa Parks. Moving to Redmond Ridge Elementary is not building community, which was one of the main goals given to the committee in rebounding. Friendships also play a key role with Rosa Parks, would be a better fit. Our kids play baseball, soccer, and ride bikes with students at Rosa Parks. They will have built-in friendships at Rosa Parks. Most of the kids being moved have been at Dickinson Elementary since kindergarten, making this an already difficult transition. As I was assured all feedback would be read and considered, yet I fail to see any adjustments made in the proposed boundary options for tonight, despite our community's feedback. Moving to a school so far away from our neighborhood would give me cause to rethink my vote on the bond and levy in the future, and my neighbors too. Thank you.
Okay, on to a different group. Jing Zhao, please. Yeah, but you didn't sign up. I did. Not under 232nd or Dickinson. Oh, wait a minute. Jess? Yeah, come on, Jess. Let's finish this out.
Tell them a big now. I yell from the back. My name is Jess Goodrich. I'm brand new to Washington, brand new to this kind of setting. And I have kids in Dickinson, and we can walk to Rosa Parks. We live on 232nd. It's 1.3 miles away. They could walk home alone if I couldn't get there because the roads are that safe. It's walking trails and residential areas that are safe. And if we are sent to Redmond Ridge, they're going to be wasting their time on a bus, creating more congestion through that area than there needs to be. And I think no one has mentioned safety yet. There's a lot of safety if you can walk your kids to school on calm roads rather than having everybody driving or everybody taking the bus. So that is a big deal to me. And then Molly gave me some notes. Let's see. So 80th and 232nd, if they went to Rosa Parks, it'd be 85 more kids. It'd be up to like 95th percent instead of 80%. Apparently, that's really problematic. But we've thought, if there are enough classrooms, then we'd be willing to deal with that rather than having a longer commute and creating more congestion. Also, like they were saying, that there's going to be more growth than perhaps is estimated. And so if that happens, the second part of that is the boundaries will have to be redrawn. We'll have to go back to another community and your feedback loops. I mean, you're going to have to do it again. So keep us where we are, please, or put us in Rosa Parks, where it really is an issue to have this area where we could go there safely on foot. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, so now we'll switch over to the Rockwell boundary. So Jing Zhao.
Good evening. My name is Jing. I sent some email this afternoon, so I hope the face recognition doesn't do me too much damage. My daughter is in 3rd grade, and my second one is only 2 months old, so still a long way for me to go. So our home is on the west side of 202. So right now the home school is Rockwell. If the boundary scenario A move us from Rockwell to the North Redmond, it's really more than double the distance. Actually, much longer because the 202, the traffic on 202 is really already one of the worst during the traffic hour, during rush hour. So when I look at the boundary map, right now the final boundary recommendation, I'm really wondering why the Greystone on the north of Rockwell, they are much closer to North Redmond. And we have to go all the way. They stay in Rockwell, and we have to go all the way to North Redmond, bypass them to the new school for a much more traffic time. And so I went to the study session. I heard that the main reason for Greystone stay in Rockwell because many of them can walk to the school. So I understand that to maintain the same transportation style, keep less of the car from the street. But really, I'm really wondering about the statistics, really how many of them really walk to the Rockwell. Because I have many friends in Greystone, they drop off because on the way to go to work, many of them drop off. And the other reason I heard that it's harder for them to walk to North Redmond, because for me to look at map, looks like about similar distance. I feel like they can walk to North Redmond, but it was said that it's harder, but I don't know really how much, whether it's how much longer for them to walk to North Redmond. That's really on the same side of 116. So that's one but our situation right now, the school bus for Verona, Mondavio side of us, it's right now the bus time already 35 minutes. I think because the bus cannot turn left from our side to the 202, so they have to, no matter what, they have to go all the way down to the QFC, the movie theater, and turn around and go back. So right now it's already 35 minutes. So I really don't know if we go to North Redmond, how much longer for the bus stop, for the school bus to stay. Because I see the distance, they will stay a lot longer for school bus to stay on 202. 202 is horrible during the rush hour. So I want to know how much longer for the school bus. And the other one is like, I think majority of us still, we do pick up and drop off, because that's from my observation in the morning, I think only 1/3 of my neighbors really use the school bus. So for us, I mean, we basically more than doubled on the 202 go north and south for the already congested area. I think we increased tons of more car time on the road. So from my personal point of view, I think it's the best for us to swap with the Greystone. I think that will reduce the total car time on the road, and stay with exactly keep the same number of families. So I think two communities, we have about same number of families. Yeah, that's my opinion.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So Christine Bigdash.
Thanks for listening tonight. My name is Christine Bigdash. I live in the Mondavio community, also west of 202. I have two children at Norman Rockwell, both in 3rd and 4th grade. I have similar concerns as Jing about the school boundaries, and the proposed scenario now has us going to North Redmond Elementary, which is a significant hardship for us in terms of more difficult transportation. So that's what I'd like to talk about. We've heard the main criteria for Greystone particularly, staying at Rockwell, is walking distance, though we really have not received or seen any facts and data on how many families in that community walk. What I'd like for you to hear tonight is our data and our facts on how long our children are on the bus and how much longer they'll be on the bus and how much longer we'll be in the cars. So our children are picked up at 7:55 in the morning right now. They stay on the bus for 35 minutes. They must, as Jing said, go all the way down to Bella Bottega and turn around and come back. In the new scenario, they won't be picking up any children down in the Avignon community. They'll actually just go down there and turn around and come back, but will be at least another 10 minutes for them to get to school. That's 45 minutes for our most vulnerable and young children. For us in the evenings to come pick up our students, if they're in after-school care that's sponsored by the district, that is the most difficult commute in most of Redmond, I believe, barring maybe Novelty Hill Road. And it will at least take us an extra 20 to 25 minutes. You might be looking at 1 mile or 2 miles in distance, but by car, I can tell you every single night, it's horrific traffic. Even trying to get to 60 Acres, which is where my kid goes to soccer, it's horrible. So evening pickups will also be worse, and there'll be just more transportation and traffic and congestion on the roads. So I ask that you guys, when you're looking at this and potentially thinking about different modifications to the proposal, look at the number of families that are in Mondavio, the Mondavio townhomes, the Verona single-family homes, and potentially even hidden the Valley Estates community, which is all west of 202, and potentially swapping with the Greystone community. They are much, much closer to the new school than we are. And so, and please, it would be great if for transparency purposes, we were given some of this facts and data on how long the transportation would take our children so that we could choose an option that we could support as a community. So thank you again for listening.
Thank you. Okay, Purnima Shankar.
Hi, my name is Purnima Shankar. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. I will make it easy on everybody since Christine and addressed all the concerns that I had. I had similar concerns about transportation and spending a long time in the bus in the mornings and then deciding to stop taking the bus and drop off my kids by car. And that's even worse in the mornings because of the traffic in 202. I live in the same community as Christine and had the same concerns. So I request that you kindly reconsider and consider swapping our community with the Greystone community. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, Simone Valderez.
I will opt for the Me Too.
Okay.
I think my concerns have been raised by my neighbor.
Thank you. That's the end of the people who signed up before I grabbed the sheets. I thank you. Now, as our meeting goes on, there is a section that's going to be very relevant for everyone except for our Muir folks. The Muir folks, we want to talk to you guys offline at other times. That's a conversation. I hope you've already talked to Nancy. I suspect you have. But it's definitely something that if there's a way, there's a will. But we don't know if there's a way yet. All right. So for the rest of you who have been speaking to the boundary issues, let's say that your two neighborhoods, there are a number of other neighborhoods we've heard from through email who are dissatisfied with various other aspects of the process. This is one of the least pleasant parts of being on a school board, just to be honest. But please do stick around because John is going to be giving us not just here is the map, but here is the rationale for each of the pieces of the map as we go through this. And the only thing I can say that there are going to be some people who are disappointed at the end. This is always the case. I've been these people. That said, it beats the heck out of overcrowding. So thank goodness we were able to build a couple of new schools. And I apologize to those of you who at the end are going to be able to say, gosh, I didn't wind up with what I wanted. What you really wanted was to get out of a school that was 110%. And that will be the case for everyone. So with that, we'll move on. So please do stick around. We've got a big presentation that you should see. A couple of you were here. There's a full version of that will be coming up. In the meantime, we're on to the consent agenda. I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Director Liberty, seconded by Director Bleasner. Dr. Pierce, will you please poll the board?
Nancy. Eric.
Yes.
Chris.
Yes.
Mark.
Yes.
Siri.
Yes.
Okay, and Dr. Pierce, as usual, will you please review the donations?
Yes, we have a significant number of donations this evening, totaling $298,313, rounding to the nearest dollar. So since there are so many, I will read quickly. We've got $3,000 from the Lake Washington Schools Foundation to Inglewood Middle for reading inventory software, $15,482 from Alcott Elementary PTSA to Alcott Elementary for stipends for music, running club, cup stacking, and to support field trips. $1,534 from John James Audubon Elementary PTSA to Audubon Elementary to provide a stipend for choir. $12,000 from Elizabeth Blackwell PTSA to Blackwell Elementary for a variety of things, including classroom enrichment, library equipment, site licenses for math and reading enrichment, library books, and field trips. $3,014 from Dickinson PTSA to Dickinson Elementary to purchase netbooks. $3,000 from Barbara and Christopher Kaler to Emerson K-12 to purchase classroom supplies. $25,364 from Ben Franklin PTA to Franklin Elementary for a variety of things, including stipends for outdoor ed and choir, field trips, and classroom enrichment. $1,534 from Robert Frost PTSA to Frost Elementary for stipend for choir. $19,445 from Horace Mann Elementary PTSA to Mann Elementary for a variety of stipends for safety patrol, choir, reading enrichment, and field trips. $17,407 from the Juanita Schools Foundation to Juanita Elementary for stipends for choir, computer science support, for accelerated reader and IXL math, and for their volunteer program. $22,584 from Lakeview Elementary PTSA to Lakeview Elementary for stipends for Homework Club, Math Olympiad, Xenomath, STEM Choir, for student fee waivers, and for classroom supplies and printing services. $4,363 from Krista McCullough PTSA to McCullough Elementary for playground equipment. $7,344 from Margaret Mead PTSA to Mead Elementary for stipends for Ultimate Frisbee, online music, music, online math enrichment, and Operation School Bell, $1,253 from Redmond Elementary PTSA to Redmond L to purchase reading enrichment site licenses, $10,000 from Simon and Masako Guest to Rose Hill Elementary to support robotics, $5,400 from Smith PTSA to Smith Elementary for field trips, $8,892 from Thoreau Elementary PTA to Thoreau Elementary for stipends for choir, outdoor ed, and for professional development, $6,269 from Twain PTSA to Twain Elementary for classroom enrichment and homework club. I'm going as fast as it's a great problem to have, isn't it? It's not a problem, it's wonderful. $41,091 from Laura Ingalls Wilder, PTSA to Wilder Elementary, for stipends for Math Olympiad, Math Club, Motor Skills Enrichment, Student Council, Safety Patrol, for library books, for IXL Math, for field trips, and staff development. $17,150 from Environmental and Adventure, School PTO at ESA to support field trips and extracurricular activities. $16,083 from North Star Parent Fund to North Star Middle for stipends for yearbook, music, extracurricular activities, and for classroom supplies. $1,500 from Redmond Middle School PTSA to Redmond Middle to purchase library books. $21,000 from Renaissance PTSA to Renaissance Middle for student fee waivers, classroom supplies, classroom enrichment, and extracurricular activities. $20,917 from Stella Scola PTO to Stella Scola for stipends for Latin 3 and 4. $4,934 from Juanita Rebels Booster Club to Juanita High School to purchase baseball uniforms. $3,429 from Lake Washington High School Dance Team Booster Club to Lake Washington High School to provide stipends for dance team. $2,000 from Lake Washington High School PTSA to Lake Washington High School to support back-to-school barbecue. And finally, $2,324 from Mustangs Cheer Boosters to Redmond High School to provide a stipend for extracurricular activities. So I think that's actually the largest list I've ever read. And the total this evening is $298,313 in very generous donations from a variety of PTSAs and booster clubs and individuals to many, many of our schools. So we're very grateful.
That truly is the longest that we've ever had, and we always take the time to read it because we want to say thank you. And ironically, with a very long list, this is one of the first times I've had anything other than a camera and 5 staff members to actually say thank you to parents in our district who do support these activities. Your support is huge to us, and we hear it. We hear you. We know. We do. We've been there. We've been PTA presidents. We've won the Golden Nut Award, that sort of craziness. Acorn, sorry. My wife, she's the one who won the Golden Nut, so I'm still bitter. Anyway, we really do appreciate the generosity of our parents in our community, and we want to thank you for all of your support. So with that, let's get to the main event that our audience is interested in. We are on to the non-consent agenda. And our first item on the non-consent agenda is the boundary process and recommendation. So, Dr. Pierce.
Great. So if you could turn to tab 8, we have the situation and recommendation. And just as a reminder, the board we're not recommending that the board take final action this evening. Tonight is our opportunity to present the final recommendation to the board. Then there's still a bit of comment and feedback, and we're requesting that the board take formal action at the November 20th board meeting. So just a little bit of background while John is bringing up the presentation, and I'll reference the situation recommendation sheet on tab 8. A boundary committee was formed in January 2017 with the purpose of recommending school attendance areas. The district, as you know, is building 2 elementary schools and a new middle school in the Redmond area, and the boundary committee was charged with drawing attendance boundaries for these new schools and to distribute enrollment across the learning community. Parents provided feedback throughout the entire process on the criteria used by the committee and proposed scenarios. At the May open house, the Boundary Committee presented 3 scenarios to the community for review and feedback. Public comment was available from May 4th through the 19th. The committee reviewed community feedback and made adjustments to meet the committee's charge and to align with the boundary criteria. 4 scenarios were developed and presented to the community in September. Public comment was open from September 26th through October 2nd. After continued review and analysis, the Boundary Committee then published 2 revised scenarios in an online open house that began on October 25th. Public comment was available from October 25th through October 30th. Finally, the Boundary Committee analyzed and reviewed all feedback from the online open house in order to develop their final recommendation. The Boundary Committee's final recommendation was based on alignment with our stated boundary criteria and also ensures enrollment is distributed across the Redmond area and can take into consideration feedback from each comment period. The final recommendation was presented to me on November 3rd, and I have met with Committee Chair John Holman as well as Barbara Posthumus throughout the entire process. So I have taken all the input into consideration, and tonight am bringing a final recommendation to the board. The final recommendation includes boundary adjustments for new and current Redmond area elementary schools, boundary adjustments for new and current Redmond area middle schools, boundary adjustments for Redmond and Eastlake high schools, recommendation for program locations for elementary and middle school Quest and Choice schools, as well as taking into consideration other program placements such as Learning Center programs. Also, you'll see in the recommendation this evening recommendations for grandfathering. So again, that's the situation. Recommendation is for the board to take formal action on November 20th. So with that, I want to say a couple more things before I turn it over to John. First and foremost, I want to just highlight the fact that boundary adjustments are not an easy process. And even when, we have done, this is now my 6th year superintendent, and I believe this is our 5th boundary adjustment in 6 years due to our continued growth. And however, I will say this is the first boundary adjustment where we're actually doing an adjustment in order to fill new schools, which is a wonderful thing. And through the support of our community, we're able to build the new schools because the passage of the 2016 bond measure, which is the first of 4 planned bonds in order to address our enrollment across the district. So we do have a long-term plan. Long-term plan was developed by the community. We are happy to begin to implement that long-term plan, which involves building new schools. And whenever we're building new schools, of course, boundary adjustments must follow. So I want to say a big thank you to John and the entire Boundary Committee that has been working through this process. Also to Barbara and to Jeff Miles, who are part of the Boundary Committee, and also district staff, because it's not been easy. The committee has worked tirelessly over this. It's been a 2 school year time frame that this process has been going on. So I just want to say thank you for all of your work and efforts. So with that, we will get started on the formal presentation. I'll highlight just a couple things and then turn it over to John. So when this process first began, the board had a conversation about ensuring that we're approaching this work and leading with equity. So we do have boundary criteria that we follow, and we'll get to that in just a moment. And it's also important, and it was important, this was our first piece of community feedback when we asked the community to rank order the boundary criteria. And we wanted to make sure that in that process, we were also leading with equity and telling people and of our commitment to providing high quality education to all students, regardless of what school students attend. We are a public school system. We do serve a diverse student body, and we value the diversity in our community, the race and ethnicity that we have represented in our student body and our parent community. Also, diversity in terms of gender and ability and socioeconomic status. And when we open new schools and determine those attendance boundaries, we're bound not to cause imbalance or segregate our schools. And we also wanted to take an opportunity anytime we're looking at boundary in order to provide as much balance as possible. So whereas potentially some previous boundary processes before all of our time resulted in some imbalance in terms of socioeconomic status. Whenever we're doing a boundary process, we are looking at all of those aspects and really leading with that. That being said, we've got specific boundary criteria that we share with the community, and we ask the community to provide input in terms of rank ordering. So that criteria that continues to be the lens through which the boundary committee examines different scenarios is what you see here on the screen. We do attempt to maintain neighborhoods to the extent possible, minimize the number of students and families affected, knowing that in this process in particular, since we're filling, for example, 2 elementary schools, that the number of students affected are going to be far greater than you've seen in prior boundary processes. We do, our goal is to redistribute enrollment to match school capacity, to accommodate growth, to minimize transportation impacts, to use natural boundaries to the extent possible, and to provide proximity for special programs to the extent possible. Now, using each of these criteria, Chris, you actually had a great description of the complexity of this work in the study session. And now, of course, I didn't write down what you said, but you said it's a multivariable...
It's a multidimensional jigsaw puzzle.
Multidimensional jigsaw puzzle. And that's really what this process is, because when you take a look at one criteria in isolation, it potentially has impacts to all the other criteria. So it's a continual refinement process that the Boundary Committee uses to develop the best, recommendation that most meets the prioritized criteria. So the task of the Boundary Committee was to analyze the attendance areas of the schools possibly affected by new schools and our current overcrowding, and to develop a final recommendation that provides necessary changes to school attendance areas in order to redistribute students to existing schools, to draw the attendance boundaries for the new schools, and to place district programs in choice schools. And so I just want to highlight that aspect for a moment, because that kind of contributes to the complexity of the process. In past boundary processes, looking at program placement was not integral to that process. And we heard feedback, if the board will recall, about the impact of making those program decisions following the boundary instead of within the context of the boundary. So taking into consideration that feedback this time around with the boundary process, we actually what's the word I'm looking for? Essentially combined the program placement process with the boundary process. So we weren't letting one of those things drive the other, but looking at them as a whole. And that was based on feedback received during the last process. So with that, it was a big task. There is a defined timeline for this work, obviously, because it needs to be completed so we can open the new schools and have students in those new schools. So with that, I will now turn it over to John. As you know, Dr. Holman led the boundary process, and thanks, John, for all your work, and you can take it away.
Great, and I'll just add that to that multivariable jigsaw puzzle is overlaid with students and families that are committed to their schools, that love their schools, and the Boundary Committee, that's the first thing we talked about when we met this year was we know that what we're going through, it's numbers and boundary lines and all of that, but at the end of the day, we know that we're going to ask families to change, that they're going to have to go to new schools, and we understand that, and we appreciate that about our community. I feel honored to go through this process with our community. I know it's not easy for the committee. I know it's not easy for families, but we take this work very seriously, knowing the impact it has. And also, it's a huge celebration for us, knowing that we're opening new schools, which we thank our community for funding those for us. It shows the commitment they have to our district and our kids and our future. So with that, I'll go through the recommendation. Redmond area schools, all Redmond area schools are affected by this boundary process, elementary, middle, and our high schools, both Redmond and Eastlake High School. You've seen this visual a number of times. It just kind of defined the process when we started last December and all the way to today. That's that second to the last star you see there in November. And we always try and get our boundary processes done prior to our registration. Kindergarten registration is kind of that first launch, knowing that we need necessary information so that we can plan for the next school year. Dr. Pierce outlined a lot of the community engagement opportunities that we've had throughout this process. As a committee, we learned a significant amount about the Redmond area in order to come up with our final recommendation. Just want to highlight the presentation outline so you know what to expect. I do want to cover current capacity and enrollment. I want to talk about the community input and just a little bit about the October 25th to 30th input we received. And then I'm going to go through the recommendation at each level, elementary, middle school, and high school. Want to review the implementation timeline for each of the recommendations, talk about grandfathering, talk about variance considerations, and then wrap up with communication and transition planning. And so talking about capacity and enrollment, we know that student enrollment in the Redmond area is growing. That's why the 2016 bond was so critical to add 3 new schools in the Redmond area. We know that all of our elementary schools are projected to be over capacity, that both of the middle schools in the Redmond area are projected to be over capacity, and that both Redmond and Eastlake High School have that same projection. So part of the solution was the 2016 bond, adding 2 new elementary schools in the Redmond area, then the 1 new middle school in the Redmond area to open in the fall of 2019. But there's also the longer-term plan that I'll touch on a few times throughout the presentation. On the 2018 bond is a choice high school that would be located in Sammamish. And one of the reasons we have a choice high school on the 2018 bond is to draw enrollment from both Eastlake and Redmond high schools. This is a data view you've seen a number of times, and it just demonstrates on that far right column the number of available classrooms currently, and it shows many of our schools are operating over and significantly over capacity right now. And in order to do that, that means they're giving up things like art and science rooms, they're reducing the standard of service, meaning they're giving up resource classrooms so that they're needing to provide that small group instruction differently. Possibly they're consolidating music. There's lots of different ways that schools reduce the standard of service to be able to implement K-5 classrooms, and then we also have grade level teachers that you heard spoken about tonight from John Muir. Our middle school capacity, currently Evergreen Middle School is over capacity and Redmond Middle School is just under capacity, but projected to be over in just the next few years. And Eastlake High School and Redmond High School, currently both under capacity, but projected to continue growing as our larger grade levels move through the system. So I want to touch on community input and community engagement. We do work to communicate throughout the entire process with the community around next steps, what we're thinking, provide scenarios. And we started the process with a press release to announce the launch of the boundary process. We have a boundary website that we keep up to date. We have direct email communication that we provide to the community. We have a Let's Talk section where questions can be asked and answers provided. And then our building principals provide information in their school newsletters. And on the right-hand side there, you can see the different engagement opportunities that we had with the community spoken about previously. Dr. Pierce outlined each of these, just a little more detail with 3 scenarios at the elementary and middle school in May, 4 for all 3 levels in September, narrowed down to 2 in October, and then our final recommendation is brought forward tonight. From the October 25th through 30th online open house, where the community received 2 scenarios to provide feedback, overall support was provided for both scenarios, A and B. When we looked at where the feedback was coming from. When we looked at the east side of the district, schools, Alcott, Dickinson, Wilder, and who am I forgetting here? And Rosa Parks, thank you. Showed greater support for scenario B, where the west side of the Redmond area had a preference for scenario A, which caused the committee then to dig deeper to understand what that feedback was telling us, knowing that even with the feedback, there were challenging decisions that were going to have to be made in order to develop a recommendation. And so the elementary recommendation. And so with this data display, I think a couple of data points I want to point out. One is the far right column. This recommendation has all of our schools either at or under capacity, meaning that we have distributed enrollment throughout the Redmond area. Another two areas I want to point out is the portable column, showing that there's 52 portables in the Redmond area, and with only 19 classrooms remaining in 21-22, that means Redmond schools are needing to continue to use 30 portable classrooms to implement this recommendation. And so while we're working towards reducing our over-reliance on portables, this is step one, and with our long-term facilities plan, there's actually another Redmond area elementary that would continue to mitigate the use of portables. Here you can see with the implementation of...
John, I'm sorry to interrupt. Just to be completely clear, that is on one of the future plan bond measures.
Yes.
Yeah. Not the upcoming 2018.
Thank you. Here you can see with the implementation of this recommendation, schools in 2018-19 demonstrates that balanced enrollment across the Redmond area. And to dig into a little bit about the recommendation, there's a lot of information that you've seen on the recommendation page, but I think at a high level, all 10 elementary schools are affected in this recommendation. All schools are either receiving students or sending students. And I think that highlights the situation that the Redmond area schools are in right now. When we look at Redmond Ridge East, we know that the Redmond Ridge East area houses about 300 students right now that are currently associated or aligned at Wilder. And so once they get reboundaried to Redmond Ridge East Elementary, that caused a situation where Redmond Ridge East was now 300 students and Wilder was 300 students, and that was one of the things that the committee looked at, knowing that we wanted our schools to have a larger neighborhood community than just 300 students. And so those are some of the things that decisions we had to make when looking at the east side of the Redmond area, was to identify areas and neighborhoods to associate both with Redmond Ridge East and Wilder. And so you can see both under Redmond Ridge East, the areas we identified in Wilder, the area north of Novelty Hill called Westchester, that now in our recommendation aligns with Wilder. In North Redmond, it was interesting learning North Redmond through this process because it is very intertwined. The neighborhoods are very connected, and so I think as a committee, we worked to understand those areas and came up with a recommendation that provides boundary lines between Einstein, North Redmond, and Rockwell that make sense. You heard a comment tonight about areas on 202, and thank you for making those. We definitely talked about those areas to a great extent. One of the reasons we did recommend to align those areas with North Redmond was the issue of transportation. The areas of Greystone, and I'm forgetting the other area closest to Rockwell in that northern area, they are within the walking boundary. And so we know that there are families that select to walk, and we know that there's families that select to drive. The areas along 202, they would be provided a bus regardless. And so that was one of the decision points in looking at that, knowing that those students would be on a bus, whether they went to Rockwell or to North Redmond. And so you can see the determination from the committee was to align them with North Redmond. Another area that under great discussion was the areas of west of 166. Currently, they're Mann attendance area, and knowing that Mann was in a situation where even with no students entering the school from a boundary adjustment, there had to be a change at Mann because they're currently over capacity, and to get them within their capacity numbers, we had to make a change. As a committee, we looked at a number of options. The area we selected west of 166 is within the mile walk area for Rockwell. Another area that we considered would move current walkers to riding a bus, so that was a consideration we made. We also looked at program at Mann Elementary. They currently have learning center programs there, and so the determination, before I get to that, even with moving the Learning Center program, a neighborhood would have to be moved from Mann to get them within capacity. So a program change didn't resolve the capacity challenge at Mann, and so you can see our recommendation was to move that entire area west of 166th. So as Dr. Pierce talked about, not only are we identifying neighborhood recommendations for this boundary adjustment, we also took into consideration the different programs that our schools house. And so you can see here the recommendation is to maintain Quest programs at Alcott, Einstein, Redmond Elementary, and Rosa Parks Elementary schools. Currently, Alcott has 7 classrooms. Redmond Elementary has 10 classrooms of Quest. Einstein and Rosa Parks each have 1 classroom. The recommendation is to reduce the Alcott and Redmond Quest programs, but to definitely maintain some level of Quest service at those schools. But additionally, our recommendation is to locate Quest programs at Wilder, North Redmond, and Redmond Ridge East Elementary schools. Where our recommendation is to maintain special education programs at all current locations, and to locate new choice programs at Einstein and North Redmond Elementary schools. Some of the impacts of the elementary recommendation. What this does is it does develop neighborhood attendance areas for both our 2 new elementary schools and all the current elementaries in the Redmond area. It ensures that all elementary schools in the Redmond area are projected to be at or under total capacity in the 21-22 school year. This recommendation does require all elementary schools in the Redmond area to experience change. Recommendation is to maintain Learning and Intervention Center classrooms at Mann, Dickinson, Rosa Parks, and Redmond Elementary. The impact of this recommendation distributes Quest classrooms to 7 of 10 elementary schools in the Redmond area. And I want to highlight that as a key to this recommendation because what we know is transportation is a challenge. And by having more Quest classrooms throughout the learning community, it actually allows more neighborhood students to attend their Quest program at their neighborhood school, so they can just take the bus with their peers. And there's not a transportation increase by busing them to a different school. Our recommendation keeps current walking students as walkers, and it increases choice school program availability for elementary students. One of the ways we look at our recommendation is in relationship to the criteria, and I'll just kind of go through our recommendation. We do believe that neighborhoods are maintained to the greatest extent possible. We knew that by opening 2 new elementary schools, our estimate was a minimum of 1,200 students would be affected by this boundary adjustment. You can see that in total, 1,353 students are affected. There's a range of 0 to 4 classrooms available at all elementary schools. Again, it keeps current walking students walkers and actually reduces the maximum bus time with this recommendation. We did consider natural barriers and man-made barriers in our recommendation, and special programs are located throughout the Redmond area. Board members, any comments or questions about the elementary portion before I move on to middle school? Okay. And so one of the things we received feedback on early in the process after the May community feedback meetings was to think about our scenarios as, if you will, packages. So have an elementary boundary recommendation or scenario that related to a middle school scenario that related to a high school scenario, so that as families and community members were giving feedback, they understood the whole picture, not just one part of a scenario, but what would be the implication for their child throughout their educational experience. And so we implemented that at the September community meetings, and that's also how you're receiving the recommendation tonight. The elementary recommendation is in relation to the middle school, which is in relation to the high school recommendation.
So, John, I apologize. I just want to briefly get something in before I lose too much more of my motivated audience. Tonight I did hear one thing that disturbs me. In 2015, the Redmond Learning Community, having been through the elementaries, was by far our worst overcrowding problem across the whole district. The projects funded by the 2016 bond relieved that pressure. Schools in Kirkland are still busting at the seams. No matter how grumpy you are after the dust settles, you will be happier than if you did not have the new building. So on the behalf of the parents at Muir and Lakeview and Kirk and all of the western side of our district who are still bursting at the seams, please don't even consider linking your vote on the bond to how you feel about this final result of this boundary process. We are still stuck in a place where we would kill to have a reboundary process, no matter how grumpy we might be at the end of it. So please, 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 don't even say that. Don't even think it, because it's kind of disrespectful for the entire half of the district that hasn't got new schools and is still operating at 110% capacity. I just wanted to say that before I lost too many more of my audience members. Please continue with the middle school.
And so with our recommendation, you can see in school year 21-22, our 3 middle schools are either below or just above their capacity number. Currently, Evergreen Middle School has, I believe, 12 portables, and with this, it would start reducing the reliance on portables at Evergreen. But I do want to be clear that at Redmond, there are currently 6 portables, and this recommendation uses those portables to implement this recommendation. You'll also see here, and we worked on these data sheets and in future boundary processes, I'm sure we'll continue to work on them. Under proposed program use, there's a whole bunch of asterisks and some language below. I just want to be clear about what all of this means. With this recommendation, Quest students are able to attend their neighborhood school in the Redmond area, meaning Evergreen, Redmond, and Redmond Ridge Middle School will all have a Quest program. The 90 you see there under Evergreen are Inglewood Middle School Quest students that currently attend their split at Evergreen and Redmond Middle. So in this recommendation, all Inglewood Middle School Quest students would attend Quest at Evergreen. You can also see there in the choice column, there's some adds and some subtractions, and I'll explain all of those. With this recommendation, and I'll speak about this later as well, we are recommending 2 new choice schools or programs, one located at Evergreen Middle School, one located at Redmond Ridge Middle School. As you know, at Redmond Ridge, we've identified that that will be a dual language immersion program. And as part of our implementation of choice schools and programs, while it's to provide options, it's also to address issues of capacity. And so you can see here at Redmond Middle School, we are assuming 125 students would access choice schools at Evergreen and Redmond Ridge, and reducing their overall student capacity to 1,071 in 21-22. So I think that kind of gives the overview picture of this data slide, just so you have that information.
And John, just for the benefit of anybody who is here in the audience or watching from home, because I know it came up during study session and we just clarified a little bit more, the reason there's an asterisk next to Quest for Redmond and Redmond Ridge is if we had placed a number there, then we would be doubly counting the students, because the Quest students are included in that 6-8 capacity needed. So that's why there's not a number there. And as John explained, the 90 number there at Evergreen, at Evergreen, those are the Inglewood students.
Right.
So I just wanted to sort of say it again to
Thank
make
you.
sure anybody who's looking at that chart understands what we're trying to convey.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you.
And here you can see this is the implementation of our recommendation. I do want to point out in year 1 of the new school opening, Redmond Middle School does see an increase in enrollment. That's due to the implementation of the choice schools and programs. But you can see in 2021, with the implementation of those programs, they're within capacity. Maybe I'll just highlight one more thing around data. When we looked at the different options for middle school boundaries, Redmond Ridge at times was really close to that 900 capacity number. And given our limitations with that site, we felt like this recommendation allows for some variation in enrollment over time, given the restrictions there. And so for our recommendation for Redmond Middle School, schools that would attend Redmond Middle would be Redmond Elementary, Mann Elementary, Rockwell, the new elementary at North Redmond, and parts of Einstein. And those areas are west of Avondale, excluding neighborhoods located on Avondale between Northeast 85th and 180th Avenue Northeast. Evergreen Middle School would have Alcott, Dickinson, and parts of Einstein, those parts of Einstein that aren't going to Redmond Middle School. And then the new middle school at Redmond Ridge would have Wilder Elementary, Rosa Parks, and Redmond Ridge East. And so our program recommendation for the middle school is to maintain Quest programs at each of the Redmond area middle schools, to locate all Inglewood Middle School Quest students at Evergreen Middle School, to maintain special education programs at all current locations. Currently, we have a transition center program at both Redmond Middle and Evergreen Middle, and we have an intervention center program at Evergreen Middle School. This recommendation also proposes a transition center program at the new middle school at Redmond Ridge for their neighborhood students that require that placement. Additionally, this recommendation places new choice schools at Evergreen Middle School and at Redmond Ridge Middle School. When we think about the impacts, again, this recommendation develops neighborhood attendance areas for our new middle school and our current existing middle schools. It ensures that all of our middle schools are projected to be at or very close to their capacity in 2021-22 school year. This does require that both of our middle schools experience change. It maintains our transition and intervention center classrooms, as I just said. It provides capacity for the new middle school at Redmond Ridge to house a transition center program. It allows Evergreen, Redmond, and Redmond Ridge Middle to provide Quest services for neighborhood students. It keeps walking students walkers, and I believe also actually increases the number of walkers with the new middle school, and it also increases choice school program availability for our middle school students. Again, when looking at the criteria, we do believe that we maintain neighborhoods to the greatest extent possible. Knowing that we were opening a new middle school with a capacity of 900, and that we had 2 schools that were projected to be over capacity, our estimate was a minimum of 900 students affected. You can see here our recommendation is 1,046. You can also see that the range of available capacity at our 3 middle schools with this recommendation are from 237 students under capacity at Evergreen Middle School to 13 students over capacity at Redmond Middle School. Again, it keeps current walkers walking. We did consider all of those natural and man-made barriers, and we do have special programs located throughout the Redmond area. Any questions or comments?
I just have a quick question on the, if you can go back a slide, it'll be easier. Thank you. So the range of available student capacity from 237 to over 13. Why have a recommendation with that type of range in the capacity between the schools?
Yeah, I think one of the reasons is that 237 capacity, a significant amount of that would be portable usage. So currently Evergreen Middle School has 12 portables, and so part of the long-term facility task force recommendation was overall to work towards reducing our over-reliance on portables, and so this is one way to accomplish this. Evergreen Middle School is in the long-term facility plan to be either rebuilt or enlarged, and so those are the things that we considered.
So, John, the recommendation is increasing capacity for middle school Quest in this district, in this region of the district?
It is allowing for Quest programs to be located at their neighborhood schools.
Okay.
And so depending on, it allows them to flex depending on the number of students. I'll just give you our projected number. We estimated about 90 students per middle school, knowing that that will ebb and flow.
Right. And then the choice options are, that's always something I hear back on parents being enthused about. We want more choice, we want more choice. This roughly doubles the amount of middle school choice programs. Is that in terms of the number of students?
Are you saying as a district?
No, in that region. Just in the Redmond Learning Community, or I guess the eastern half of the district.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so actually when we worked on a long-term plan for growing choice to keep pace with the growth of the district, we had the first choice school in the Redmond region as a part of this process. That's the dual language. Then as this process continued and we looked at potential options and went back to our choice school expansion plan, that's where the second choice school. So currently there is no Redmond Learning Community, Redmond Region Middle School choice program.
So that's an infinity % increase. Okay, keep going.
That's a fun number to say. Okay, now for the high school recommendation. And our high school recommendation comes in context of a few different action items. 1 is the boundary process. 2 is our short-term plan to address capacity. 3 is the long-term plan to address capacity. And so here on this data view, you can see that the second to last row is that new choice high school, which would be located in Sammamish. It'll be a student capacity of 600 students. That choice school, yes, it provides options for our students. and it helps us to address issues of capacity at our comprehensive high schools. And so you can see here, we have total capacity at our schools needed, 912 capacity needed, and this is in the 2022-23 school year. So this is a pretty long-term view here, but knowing that our high schools are continuing to grow, and that means Eastlake High School is projected to be about 400 to 500 students over capacity here. And so part of the solution is an adjustment in Eastlake attendance area, and so you can see the estimated of about 50 students, high school students, in the boundary change. With the implementation of a new choice high school, which is on the 2018 bond, we're estimating about 400 students from Eastlake High School would attend, about 100 students from Redmond High School would attend. So you can see both are within 69 or 30 students over capacity after the implementation of all of this. We've also identified some interior building modifications to increase scheduling efficiency so that the students they have, they're actually able to schedule into classes. And so that's kind of the overview of this data view. Siri, did you have a...
Just real quickly, do these numbers take into account our students who choose Running Start or choose any of in the junior or senior year? To how those numbers are projected.
I'm going to say this, and then I'll look to Barbara. Barbara says they do not.
Okay, so we would assume that those numbers are actually lower in the long run because we would have students who choose Running Start, and knowing that in Sammamish they now have access to another additional high school option. Central, I think, is running it.
And so along the same lines, the 400-100 isn't that we're forcing 400, but rather that it's going to be placed nearer to Eastlake, and therefore we expect proximity to drive attendance?
One of the things we've talked about is potential need for a shift in strategy when it comes to choice school and how we do lottery. So, we're estimating at this point. In the past, we've been able to rely on hope. When we built Tesla STEM, we made some assumptions and hoped that it would draw appropriately from the surrounding schools to enable capacity. As we move forward and grow and have more choice options distributed throughout the district, we've talked about potentially the need to be more prescriptive in terms of how many spots are available per school. So in this potential scenario, we're making that prescription. That hasn't been determined yet that we're going to need to do that. You brought up the Running Start variable that so once we actually get closer to opening that school in 2022, we'd be able to determine whether we can be more prescriptive. We have some past practice around that when we opened Cambridge at Juanita High School. The first year or 2 years, I'd have to go back and verify, that program was only open to students in the Juanita learning community, and then eventually when it grew big enough, we opened it to district-wide. So anyway, as John raised, the choice strategy that we have in place allows for two things. It allows us to provide a continuum of program offerings for students and families across the district, and it allows us to efficiently address space needs. For example, as you all know, we discussed back in 2010 and made a determination that it would be a more efficient and fiscally sound decision to move forward with a choice school strategy at high school versus building a fifth comprehensive high school with all the amenities of a comprehensive high school that requires 40 buildable acres inside the urban growth area and all of those things. So as we continue to build out choice schools, as needed, we can determine the specifics around lottery processes to ensure that we're drawing the capacity appropriately from the right schools.
And yeah, so the processes are not nailed down, but the physical location for the school is no secret, is it?
That's correct. So we own property in Sammamish, and just like when when A Choice High School was back part of a plan in our 2014 bond that unfortunately didn't pass. We have the property in Sammamish. The plan is to build the school in Sammamish.
And this is the property next to...
It's essentially between Eastlake High School and Eastside Catholic.
Okay.
So we are in the process of getting all of the project information for the 2018 bond projects on the district website. So when the location of the school is known, we will put the address there and put all of the kind of conceptual renderings and number of students served and so forth. All of that's in the works and will be done soon and available on the district website.
Okay. Speaking as a dad who got a kid to that bus for 4 years for STEM at 6:30 in the morning, I think your assumption that you won't get many from the west side of the district is probably reasonably good.
Well, we review our draw data annually to see where kids are coming from as well. So a recommendation around high school is to shift students from Eastlake High School to Redmond High School, and it's the areas on Union Hill, currently a Dickinson area, and currently an Alcott area that are being proposed in our recommendation to shift to Redmond Ridge East Elementary, and also proposed to shift to Redmond Ridge Middle School. They're also being proposed to shift to Redmond High School in this recommendation. What this recommendation does, it redistributes some enrollment from Eastlake to Redmond High School. It does maintain neighborhoods in alignment with elementary and middle school boundary changes. It also takes into account both that short-term and long-term facility plan, knowing that we have a choice high school on the 2018 bond measure. We also have shorter-term needs for Eastlake through a short-term plan, which is currently in development. So reviewing our criteria, we do believe that we maintained neighborhoods to the greatest extent possible. This doesn't affect any current students. It only affects future high school students. It balances enrollment by 2022 with that planned opening of the new choice high school. It does not increase transportation impacts. We did consider both natural and man-made boundaries, and in this recommendation, there are no program implications. Any questions about the recommendation before I go into other information?
I know that we had several questions that came out of the work session that we'll be getting that information on as well. And so there was quite a bit around that.
Yeah, and following up on that, given that there won't be another study session or another meeting between now and when we decide on this, I think it would be, and there was a lot of people in the crowd who had similar questions to what the board asked. And if the board's going to be considering that information, I think it'd be helpful if your responses were in some way disseminated to the public in advance of our board meeting. I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but is that something you're able to do, and how would you do that?
Yeah, we update the boundary webpage with information so that it's publicly available. Anytime we update the boundary webpage, we push email to all families at Redmond area schools. So every school on the list receives an email update with that information. We also have community members and families that have subscribed to the boundary webpage. We also make sure that they receive communication as well anytime we update that webpage.
So my suggestion would be that on that webpage we update information that the study session was held with the board this evening, that these were the questions raised by board members, and then here are the answers provided to the board, which we will do soon, and then we can put all of that on the boundary webpage and notify people that that's there.
And here's the link to, the 30 minutes we spent on this piece of it would also be good.
Great.
I would also add from the public comment the questions that came out of there as they spoke, to have that as part of that list as well, for ones that weren't covered prior.
So, actually, go ahead and finish. You're on the last 2 or 3 slides, yes? Do it.
We're about 10 more, minimum.
Do it quick.
So timeline, overall what this says is elementary boundaries will be implemented in the 2018-19 school year. Middle school boundaries will be implemented for the 2019-2020 school year. And the high school boundary change will go into effect for the 2019-2020 school year, but only for incoming freshmen that year. So any student who's attending high school in the 2018-19 school year will finish their high school at their current high school.
Slow it down. This is important.
So go fast to go slow. Part of our recommendation is always reviewing the data around grandfathering. What is grandfathering? Grandfathered students are given the option to remain at their current school for a set period of time. And so with our final recommendation, we run the numbers, we look at opportunity, are we able to? We always enter the process knowing that if we're able to provide grandfathering as an option, we will. And so we have a recommendation for elementary and middle school and high school. And so for elementary, our recommendation is to offer grandfathering for current fourth grade students attending their neighborhood school, who will be entering the fifth grade in the 2018-2019 school year. It's important to note that grandfathering does not apply to students that are in a district program, such as Quest. Part of our recommendation is also that siblings of grandfathered students would be able to concurrently attend the same elementary school for the 2018-2019 school year only. We also want to make sure that siblings of grandfathered students entering kindergarten, so those are students that aren't currently in our system, but if they're entering kindergarten next school year, that they would also be able to concurrently attend the same elementary for the 2018-2019 school year only. But after the 2018-19 school year, all grandfathered students and siblings would attend their assigned neighborhood school. Part of our recommendation is also that transportation would not be offered or provided to grandfathered students or their siblings. That is due to the impact and stress on the system, and just we don't feel like at this point we would be able to fulfill that transportation obligation if it was offered. And so this recommendation comes without transportation. For middle school, we're also recommending grandfathering. There's a little more complex because we're talking about next year's seventh grade students, so current sixth graders, that they would be offered to stay at their current neighborhood school for eighth grade, and that would be for the 2019-2020 school year. Again, grandfathering does not apply to programs such as Quest. Siblings of grandfathered students will be able to concurrently attend the same middle school in the 2019-2020 school year, and similar to our elementary recommendation, that after that 2019-2020 school year, all grandfathered students would attend their assigned neighborhood school. Again, transportation is not part of our recommendation for grandfathered students or their siblings. And since no current high school students are affected, there's no grandfathering will not be available to high school students.
Since you're an audience who need to understand this, yes.
So my son's in high school right now, and he will be affected by this. So I don't understand why you say no current high school students. He's in 10th grade at East Lake, and he's slated to go to Redmond now. So will he be grandfathered in?
So technically,
Hey, John, maybe repeat the question.
Yeah. So the question is, if I have a student who's currently in high school, are they going to have to change high schools? And the answer is no. Any student that is attending high school in the 18-19 school year will be able to continue in that high school until they graduate. So we won't be changing students' high school experience.
Actually, hold on to that. What I'm thinking we're going to do is we've actually got, at this point, we are about 45 minutes behind schedule on a meeting that was supposed to end at 9:45. I'm really excited about this premise. So if you have specific questions, I think the program report is not John, or is it John?
What I would, if I would recommend that people write their questions down and give them to us, and so that when we update the web page or we can address the questions like we had discussed, that would be the most effective way to do it.
And we've got a couple more items on the agenda, some of which involve John, some of which do not. It is possible that he could hobnob with you quickly if you have clarification questions at that point. So, anyway, keep rolling, buddy.
Okay. So the other issue that we considered as part of our recommendation is variance. And a variance is where a Lake Washington family requests to attend a school that's not their neighborhood school. And so we wanted to make sure that we're thinking about this as well. And so our elementary school variance considerations, we know that all elementary schools in the Redmond area will be closed to variance in the 2018-2019 school year. We do that after a boundary change. We make sure all of our schools are closed so that we can actually implement the boundaries, know the impact of the boundaries, and build our projections from there. Exceptions may be granted to our variance policy. We have a director of school support who is in charge of variances, and under these following conditions, a variance may be granted. That a student that was in kindergarten during the 14-15 school year and changed schools for first grade due to the 14-15 Lake Washington boundary process may be granted a variance if space is available. And to be explicit about that, if a student, a Lake Washington student, was moved just a few years ago in elementary, and because of this boundary process, they're being moved again, we just want to make sure to call that out, that exceptions may be granted if space is available, but we also need to note that transportation is not provided for students receiving a variance. And so that's just to take into consideration those students. We know that students that were in kindergarten that year will be entering fourth grade this upcoming year, and we know that first grade students that year are current fourth graders, and so they would be offered grandfathering. That's why they're not identified here. For middle school, essentially same. The 1920 school year, the Redmond area schools will be closed to variance, and that we will follow our typical variance policy where someone may request a variance to a closed school, and that the director of school support would evaluate that and make a determination. And those really are exceptional exceptions in this case. And again, if there is an exception made, that transportation would not be provided. In high school, for the last number of years, we've identified our high schools as open to limited variances, and we've gone through a process each year to accept variances, and we've had to, at times, lottery, and we look at kind of different tiers of priority. And I just wanted to call out here, possibly for this issue that was just identified tonight, when we're looking at variance requests between high school, our policy states that first priority is given to students with a concurrently enrolled sibling at the requested school. And so it kind of goes back to that whole idea of a family being able to have students at a school. And so in this case, concurrently enrolled at high school, we wanted to call that out as part of this recommendation, also knowing that transportation is not part of the variance recommendation. Thinking about next steps, communication and transition planning. We know that after the formal action by the board on November 21st, we'll have a district level communication. It'll be sent out to all Redmond area families, notifying them that the boundary decision has been made. And on November 28th, we'll have our building principals follow up with communication to their current families. So these aren't families that are coming into their school next year, but these are their current families. And Barbara and her team then work through and develop the communication plan for eligible families regarding grandfathering, because that's a whole process of notifying families and receiving information about, do they want to accept the grandfathering or do they want to transition to their new neighborhood school. And then all throughout the spring, that's really that time where our schools are working with our students and families. Some of that work is to say goodbye. Much of that work is to say hello. The last district-wide boundary that we had, we made sure that any student that was going to a new school, that principal went to the school. We also provided an opportunity for those students to go to their new school, have an event or an experience, so that it wasn't just brand new the first day of school. And so those are the types of things that last bullet identifies. And that is the complete boundary recommendation.
Thank you, John. Okay. So, one clarification question. Further modification of the proposal remains possible if a suggested edit yielded a better fit to the criteria than the existing proposal. But given the literally hundreds of hours that the team has already spent on this, such a modification is not particularly likely. Would that be a fair statement?
So if requested, the boundary committee would get back together.
Yeah.
And I think another thing to highlight, there isn't a suggestion that we've heard that we didn't evaluate. And one of the things that is the most challenging to rationalize is, how can a small number of students create an imbalance in capacity? And those are the things that we toil with. There's times where we can move a large number of students, and just given how those students, because when we're developing our data, we're actually looking at numbers of the kids that are in the system. It isn't just arbitrary numbers. And so when we move those kids, ahead to the next grade level, sometimes they fit in magical ways, and other times we're just really close to generating another classroom. And so, 3 or 4 kids in a grade level can cause a school to increase the need for a classroom. And so those are the times where we're, pulling our hair out, because there are decisions that have to be made in regards to the data that don't always make logical sense. And so, but if needed.
Well, no, actually, I would argue that everything that I've seen out of the committee does make logical sense. The problem is that it's considering 7 things simultaneously, as opposed to on one variable where you might look at it and say, that doesn't make sense. And having dealt with headaches of this nature from the micro to the macro, this is definitely a whack-a-mole problem, where if you knock it down one place, something else happens elsewhere. Part of this that's extraordinary is that we have 2 new elementary schools, and yet we had to change boundaries on every one of the existing elementary schools to make this puzzle fit. I know how hard this is, and for you out there who are looking at it as this is tricky, it's trickier than any problem I've ever seen. It is something that hopefully we've gotten to a point where, I don't know, it's minimizing discomfort. And at the same time, I mean, I will say, last time did we have the additional Quest Middle School in there in the last cycle? And there's some new innovations that are actually the new choice piece.
Yeah, we didn't have the second choice school until the last study session with the board.
And that comes down to, I really want our audience to not only believe that we've tried to fit all the pieces, but tried to come up with as many creative solutions that actually weren't on the table up front as possible to get there. It is not impossible, but hopefully we'll be able to show to provide you with the rationale for things where in one dimension it seems to make all the sense in the world. We have reduced the longest bus times according to our projections. Those weren't in the presentation. They will be part of the material that's provided. And it does matter. I mean, I have to admit, time on the bus is not real effective homework. But it's also kind of unavoidable given how broad our district is. So anyway, any other questions for John? Siri?
Mine's just following up. I guess my expectation would be, based on the questions that have been asked in the request for a little additional information around transportation time, sort of some of those breakouts, as that information comes to light, how will that get incorporated and viewed into possible shifts or changes that could be? That would be my only piece, is that as we answer those questions, that we do take that time to reanalyze that and look at that, and that you consider those things as a final in that process.
So my answer to that is yes. So the board has during study session, raised some questions that are not unlike some of the questions that were raised during public comment, requested some additional data. We will follow up and provide it also on the Boundary webpage, so then the public can know if they didn't attend the study session, they'll know what sort of questions and data that the board requested. As we're doing that, if something emerges from that lends itself to a possibility that we hadn't seen before, hadn't considered before, absolutely that would be considered. I also don't want to sort of convey that there's going to be some magical solution that we hadn't seen before. And that, as was discussed before, the committee really did listen and look at everyone's feedback, and ultimately the recommendation by nature won't be able to meet with everybody's preferred direction, and we realize that. So yes, we'll look at that, and it likely will be that we can provide that additional data and the rationale, and there likely will not be a change to the recommendation. However, there could be. And so I'm trying to convey that, yes, we're going to look at that data if something does emerge, and I also just don't want to convey that there's likely some solution that we haven't seen. It's not impossible. John, do you want to say it any differently or add anything? Okay.
Many of the questions that were asked tonight were questions that we asked as a committee along the way, and so much of the data will be providing what the committee discussed. Transportation times, that's why we had Jeff Miles in the room, because anytime we were looking at a neighborhood, we would ask him, what's the transportation impact, and he would describe it from what he knew anecdotally, changes, what buses would he send to an area based. And so much of the information you requested were the things that we talked about throughout the process. And so, but again, hopefully you've seen through this process, it's a reflective process for the committee. We look at information, and I can say we have heard your feedback, we've heard the community's feedback, and we knew it was a very challenging task. And I think as a committee, we feel good about where we've landed, and we're happy to answer these questions and continue to reflect.
Okay. So there is one piece of silver lining I wanted to give the audience, and that is, speaking as someone who has a fair number of friends who are military brats, kids are more flexible than parents. Your children will survive the reboundary process, even if you do not. It happens. That said, I also wanted to give you a lighter version of my previous tirade. Don't let the reboundary influence your vote on the bond. If you're unhappy with the reboundary, if I run in 2 years, vote against me. That's sending a message to the administration. Voting against the bond is hurting children. Thank you. All right.
If I can just say one last thing is thank you first to the Boundary Committee and staff. I do feel there has been a lot of work, and when you speak of that iterations of things, if we go back to the first scenarios that went out, these are decidedly different. Having been through multiple reboundary situations, each time we have definitely improved in how we engage with the community and feed back and forth, and I think that says a lot in being able to. I'm also appreciative that we have been able to address some of our long-term goals, especially in the sense we have spoken about trying to really put Quest into our neighborhood schools more effectively, of being able to expand choice programs. We've sort of taken a situation and been able to build towards our vision at the same time. And I think that's a very beneficial step, and willingness to take that. That actually came up sort of at the end. So that I do say. So I do appreciate, which is part of where that expectation comes from. If something new does come to light, that we pay attention to it.
Okay, Eric, any? Mark? Okay, that takes us on to our second item on the non-consent agenda, which is policy on math, or the monitoring report.
Okay, so we have our...
So now we have a brief time that John, are you ready for questions in the hallway?
He'll take.
Yeah, I think he will be. So, all right.
Okay, so we have a end result monitoring report this evening for mathematics. So Mike is going to take the lead on this. I'll get us. And again, I just want to say that our revision process this year and the improvements we've made to the end result monitoring process is very helpful for us. I had shared with Siri that following the literacy report, last time, the team, we've really taken back the feedback from the board, and that's led to us looking at the data in some different ways and kind of engaging with our internal team in different ways to really determine what we want to do to take action based on the priorities specified by the board. So we're excited to be here now to do the same process and the same cycle with mathematics. This really is an opportunity for us to better connect our ends and means. Our ends are the results that we want for our students, tonight specifically about mathematics, as well as our means, specifically as it connects to our academic program. So this slide just spells out a little bit more detail what the policy language is around the math end results. And there's also some ER3 or end result 3 in this because students are obviously learning academic thinking skills and strategies in content areas as well, even though we're going to do a separate ER3 report. There are aspects of ER3 in all of our content reports as well. And then, as I mentioned, the connection to the academic program. So tonight, last time Matt presented along with me on the literacy report. This time Mike is presenting, and so in the future you'll see John as well. So we thought that was important because it's important for us to convey and symbolize that these efforts are all of our efforts. So I have a hand in this work, as does Mike, as does Matt, as does John, and then Tim Krieger has really been the data genius behind our data displays and the Power BI displays that the board has in addition to what you're seeing in the report tonight. So with that, I'll let you take the lead, Mike. We've gone through the report numerous times, and if there's anything that I want to chime in, I will.
Thanks. So thanks for the opportunity to share some of the good work that's happening in our schools, particularly in the area of math, and also our efforts to continue to improve our performance. Underlying all of those efforts is a math program that we have in elementary, middle, and high school. It's really a testament to our teachers and building administrators and central office folks who work to make sure that every one of the kids in our system has access to a really high-quality core curriculum and instruction that's aligned to standards. And so I want to just give you a brief overview of that math program. So in elementary school, all of our students have 360 to 420 minutes a week of math instruction, depending on age, that's supported by high-quality curriculum materials and resources. We recently, 2011, so not so recently, but relatively recently went through a math adoption, and we have curriculum in place now that's being used to support core instruction as well as intervention. We adopted intervention materials with that are being used for ELL and safety net and special education. At the middle school, you may remember, we did do a recent adoption, 2016, and adopted new middle school 6, 7, and 8 math materials, and those were put in place last year. We had training that went with that last year and then additional training that's happening this year. We also, as you may recall, adopted a wonderful supplemental program with that called ALEX that's being used with our middle school students as well right now. And we're also seeing, we'll talk about later, that ALEX is showing some promise at elementary and high school. So wonderful program happening in middle school and training that's going on right now there as well. And then at high school last year, a high school math adoption specifically for Algebra 1, 2, and Geometry. That is being implemented starting this year. Again, having that core curriculum makes a huge difference for our students. And then we have supporting resources and training that goes with that. We also wanted to take a moment to just remind you of our math pathways. The big idea here is that regardless of where students enter the high school math pathway, they can take up to 4 years of math in high school. That could be a student who takes the traditional 6, 7, and 8 middle school math and then goes into algebra, has up through math analysis or pre-calculus in 12th grade, or students who enter an advanced pathway early as 7th grade can get all the way through 2 years of AP calculus in high school. So again, that's that core curriculum that we have that makes sure every kid in our system has access to good experiences that continue their math into college. So this all is the curriculum that underlies our performance in math, and we wanted to start with our assertions that overall we're making reasonable progress in math, and that we do have exceptions, and we'll talk about those in detail. In particular, we have achievement gaps for some of our groups of students in our schools, and we're still working towards that 90% target in mathematics. So starting with our assertions and the performance of our students, if you look across the state for districts, the 49th largest districts in Washington, we're in the top tier of those districts for all of our students. And again, testament to the quality of instruction that's happening in our classroom and our teachers and principals and folks that support them. So particularly for grades 3 through 8, first or second in the state for all students. The Math K, a little bit lower. Remember, that's a beginning of the year assessment, so that's more of how students are entering the system. And remember that we don't have the 11th grade because of if you may recall, there's a lower number of students that took the assessment last year. That's coming back up, so the assessment results didn't match up in terms of having that 11th grade data. We are seeing some growth, not as much as we were seeing in ELA when Matt was presenting a few weeks ago, but there is some growth in grades 3, 5, 8, and then 11 with that. Again, students that weren't taking the test are factored into that. And as we mentioned before, and similar to ELA, more students are earning full credit in math over time. So we're seeing about 97% of our 9th grade students are earning full credit in math. And again, that raised the question, okay, if we have really high results in math and we're still seeing some gaps, what's going on there? And that's something to explore. But at the same time, kids are getting the coursework they need and the credits they need to get to graduation, starting as early as 9th grade. So at this point, we want to talk about where we're seeing some exceptions, and similar to our English language arts presentation, we see exceptions for special education students, our students in special education, English language learners, students from low-income households, and then some of our Latino American, our Latino Hispanic and Black African American students. So overall, just big picture, we see gaps. And so what we'd like to do now is drill down into each of those areas in more detail. So special education to start. So as you saw when we were talking about all students, we were scoring in the top tier, 1 or 2 in each of those categories, performance drops to some extent when we look at special education. Remember, however, that this is just the top group of 49 districts. So we cut them off or we'd be running down below the screen. We're still up in that top tier. We're ranking anywhere from 6th to 10th amongst the 49th largest districts in the state. So we're performing in that top group. At the same time, there are districts that are outperforming us, and that's something that we want to be thinking about, what's happening in those districts. The other thing to note is that there are gaps that we're seeing in terms of the performance of our students receiving special education services and all of our students, and significant gaps that aren't closing in most cases. And so this is an area that we need to attend to. We talked at our last session about disaggregating, because this includes all students with individual education programs, not just students with math as an area, but all sorts of areas. There's 13 different qualifying categories for special education, and this includes all students who are eligible to take the assessment. We also look at the cohort of students. This is an older group because we don't have that elementary or that early assessment like we do for ELA. So we looked at our class of 2021. Same thing here, somewhat flat performance, looking from 6th to 8th grade with that gap that we're seeing across time. So then this begs the question, well, what are you doing? And one of the pieces of feedback we received from our last report was, break this down to things that you think are working, things that you are implementing that are new, because if you're getting the results that you're not happy with, you should be working on adding some new things. And then what are you evaluating? So our current approach is to make sure that we have goals in our improvement plans at each school that really target groups of students. We also have, as I mentioned, curriculum that we've just put in place. In particular, supplemental curriculum, Alex, we're finding that it's starting to see some benefits in elementary as well as high school, in addition to the middle school. We are also looking at professional learning. I think you remember when we did the program report for intervention services, the schools where we did really intense professional learning, we saw incredible results for. We see that as a high leverage strategy. And so our safety net program is looking at providing really intensive instruction around math. We're also looking at providing that training and support with our adoptions. And then, as I mentioned earlier, we also are looking at that co-teaching model. So we're not pulling kids out of instruction to receive services, but there's a person in class so they have access to that core curriculum. With special education, in terms of strategies to review or looking at is something that you think is really working. We have a lot of supplemental curriculum out there that's being used in different ways. And so what we want to do is look at a number of factors there. We want to look at, is the supplemental curriculum we have actually being used the way it's intended to be used? Is it still matched to the standards and the ways we know are effective to teach mathematics? And if not, are there better approaches out there? And so we are looking at that supplemental curriculum you see over there and doing an analysis and an evaluation of that to see if it's working. And if it's not, the idea would be to have either new supplements or replacement curriculum coming in. The other thing we're seeing an opportunity to do is to identify assessments that really home in on kids that need support, identifying them early, not just having those SBA results come in, at the end of the year and then using those, but screening students early and then having ways to check their progress more consistently. And so we think if we have that, then we can start matching the supplements and the interventions to them more effectively. So that's going to be our approach for special education. For English language learners,
Mike, before you move on, it looks like questions or comments about special education?
You mentioned inclusion service delivery model. I was under the impression you only had 1 or 2 programs that are up and being experimented with, or do you have more online or more coming?
For co-teaching
specifically?
Yes. So we just recently finished a kind of a survey of what's happening in our schools, and there is co-teaching happening in some of our schools.
I mean, how many is what I'm asking?
Excuse me?
How many programs? I thought it was 1 or 2.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember exactly the number. I'd have to pull it, but we do have Inglewood, I know, is we have co-teaching. East Lake High School, we have co-teaching, and that's specifically in math and ELA. And so our next steps are to see how effectively, looking at data, is it working, to expand it and identify what are the best practices of co-teaching. And ultimately, our goal is to have a co-teaching model in every secondary school to start for math and ELA. So it's a goal that we're working towards.
Why don't we do this? Why don't we do a follow-up on,
Right.
specifically where it is and kind of a little more flesh around the plan moving forward?
Because there is a lot of research out there about co-teaching and the effectiveness of it.
English language learners, we're finding that, and I think I mentioned this during our program report, our ELAs, our English language learner students are doing quite well in relation to other districts. So in the top tier of the highest performing districts, relative to other students or other programs that have ELL. So first, second, or third, or fourth for grades 3, 5, and 8. Again, not to say that there's not more work to do, but in relation to other districts, promising. We also mentioned, and just as a reminder, many of our students, after receiving ELL services in kindergarten, first grade, and second grade, exit and go into mainstream classes and get additional support over time. And so we see a pretty significant drop in the number of students. And the students who are remaining consist of two groups of students. We have some students that come in that are new to our system, and then we have some students that are new to our system that had a test the previous year, and then some that just have never had an EL proficiency assessment. So there are students that continue, and we'll show you some cohort data on that, but this is a group of students that have probably greater needs. They're either not responding to instruction that we're providing, or they're coming into the system new and have never had EL services, or they're maybe even new to the country in some cases. And so our approach has to take that into account. So we do see a decline in performance each year. We also have fewer students each year, and so we'll show you some data on that. Just a reminder, too, the students who we do have in the system that stay in our system that we have for periods of time, as they go through our ELL program and have successive years out in mainstream courses, do perform better over time. This is a really significant result. So students that are 4 years out from our ELL program are outperforming our all-student group. And so that's a success we don't want to lose. And at the same time, we have significant gaps. So, for example, you can see at each grade level, 3rd, 5th, 8th, and to some extent 11th, the students who are still in ELL at the time of the assessment are not performing anywhere near the all-student group. And that would make sense for a number of reasons. One is the assessments in another language. The content that they're receiving is also, they're hearing that in English, and so there's that lag of what they're learning and the language that they're being taught in, as well as the assessment that they're being expected to perform on. And just thinking about the vocabulary as an example, looking at the current SBA, I pulled up an 8th grade item. There were vocabulary terms like value and mapping and figure that had mathematic connotations, and if you just heard of a map, you'd have that. And so there's that really complex interplay of language in math, just as well as there is in ELA, that is a barrier for students that we need to be thinking about as we're considering how do we address that. We also looked at how our students do. We took a cohort of students, for the class of 2021, and again, performance in this case is dropping. And as I mentioned before, it's also a smaller number of students over time. So that cohort started in 6th grade as 63 students, and about 30 of those students either exited the ELL program or moved to a different school. And so we are seeing, again, a group of students that persistently are having a harder time, and at the same time that number is declining. So our approach, and again, this is thinking about what do we have in place that we know is working well, and what do we need to be thinking about to move forward and get better results. We do have very specific targeted goals, and that shouldn't say special education, that's to say ELL for school improvement, that are monitored by our directors. We have summer programs for students and parent and family engagement. And then, as I mentioned, the program that we're looking at is really targeted. It's a program called SIOP, Training for Teachers, that really focuses in on that vocabulary. So as I was just mentioning, even in math, there's very complex math vocabulary that has multiple meanings. And so if we can start helping kids kind of break that or understand that language and decode that language, they can be more successful. There's also work that's being done to not just work with ELL teachers, but math teachers themselves to help them work with their ELL students so that when we have a student that comes in high school, for example, who's new to the country or who is still in ELL, that we're working on those needs to help them kind of bridge that gap between the content and what they're being assessed on so that they can be more successful. And then longer term, there are programs. I think there's some promise in our dual language program that will develop over many years. So I think were we taking little stops between each one, or?
I just have a question. The cohort data is the most interesting in that piece in some regards. So are there thoughts of what you will do differently? I mean, the thought is, if I'm understanding this correctly, those 33 students in 8th grade were also in ELL in 6th grade.
Correct.
So there's a question around how long it's taking them in which to learn the language as a piece. So how well are we looking at what are those other barriers, what learning disabilities might be there? How do you start to tease those pieces
that very
out?
conversation today.
And I did actually look at that. For this group, the number didn't register. So there weren't any special education students in this cohort group. That's not to say that special education isn't a factor or a learning disability or some other factor.
That's what my question is. How do you start to tease out that piece of for what reason is the language being so difficult to learn in some regards? And how do you start to address that issue?
Yeah, and the other thing I was going to share at the end, we're talking about these as discrete categories, but there is so much overlap in many cases. In some cases, we have ELL students who are low income, or there might be cultural factors that are impacting their achievement. Some of the students that are in the other groups we talked about that come into high school, their first experience in education is in an American high school. They haven't ever been exposed to education at all. And so there's all sorts of variables in that group that we need to tease into. So just to say that there's a PSYOP strategy that's going to cure all of these problems is probably not the best approach. We need to know each individual student and what their needs are. So there will be PSYOP strategies. There are also intervention strategies that are coming into place. We mentioned, you'll see with low income, there's resources and services that'll have to come into play as well. And again, you're right, we can't think of this as just an ELL student. It's a student with a whole series of factors that kind of excite.
Well, that's that whole piece, is the context in which the learning is occurring is that piece to look at. And so that's the...
And there's, sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, and what's great about the new data displays is we're able to tease out the data and look at it in ways that we haven't before. And I mean, the first step is being able to identify and pose the question so we can, it's clear that that all EL students are not the same. There are a number of the original 63 in 6th grade who have exited. So whatever we did for those students, they learned the language, and not only did they learn the language, they're performing in mathematics.
Well,
and there's another group of those students who haven't learned the language, they're still in program, and their math performance is declining. So obviously, we need to do something different for these different groups of students and not approach all EL students as homogenous.
Were all 63 of those kids starting ELL in 6th grade?
So that's the other thing that's not reflected here is this is just in 6th grade.
That's just how many there were.
So,
so some of them
may
might
not
have been
in our
4th.
system in 5th, right?
We need length of time in ELL.
Well, there's some really fun pieces. I agree with Siri that this cohort data is fantastic. Go back one slide. There's another trend in the data that I think is really meaningful, and that is that the gap increases not within any one of these, but from the top left, grade 3, they're really not doing too badly after, even without. And it's the complexity of the barrier to the subject that language poses. I don't even think we should bother testing a kid for grade 11 math if they're an ELL student. You're setting them up to fail. It's not fair. But the exited kids, that's where did the system work? But I really like this idea. I mean, at first I was thinking, oh, well, I'm actually not all that worried. No, I am worried, but it's a different problem at different levels. At the elementary level, I'm not sure you need to improve a whole lot. You just need to make sure that you keep doing it well. At the higher levels, then it becomes a more complex problem. It can't necessarily be a 3-year process. So anyway, but I'm actually, I mean, I just love some of these things in terms of the performance of exited students. There's a lot of kids who have come into our system not speaking English. By the time that they're out of ELL, they're performing with their peers. Hallelujah. Mark.
Yeah, I'm wondering, when they do exit, are we doing any kind of qualitative interviews to say what worked, what didn't work, why do you think you've succeeded, what really was the hardest part for you? My thought is, that the numbers are good in some areas, bad in some areas, but my point is, the only way you're going to find out what works is to talk to those kids. And just to analyze the numbers year after year after year without figuring out what in the world are we doing right or what in the world are we doing wrong is basically just riding a stationary bicycle.
I think that's an approach not only for students in ELL, but for any
for
student.
all students.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
absolutely.
But in particular, what we're looking at here.
Right. All right, so students from low-income households, here's an area where we see we're not performing at quite the same tier of schools that we were for ELL. So when we were talking about this morning, we were saying, there's, of those 49 districts that continue down below the lines that you see up there, if we took the top 25%, that would kind of be in the upper tier. And we see for low income that we're not always in that group. And so whereas with ELL, you saw we were performing, first or second. Here we're looking at anywhere 11th to 29th. And so that gives us pause or makes us wonder, okay, what's happening here? So we want to unpack that a little bit more as well. We still are seeing gaps. And at the same time, there's some growth happening too. So, yeah.
Sorry, I love this kind of data, and I'm kind of fascinated that our regular competitors aren't above us either.
Right.
We're all suffering.
Yes.
We're not doing a great job relative to districts that have significantly higher low-income populations.
Yeah. Well, maybe we need to talk to each other.
That's important.
Maybe we need to talk to each other.
Yeah, that too.
And really sit down and analyze what in the world are we doing right and what in the hell are we doing wrong.
Yeah. Well, anyway, let's finish this and then we'll get to the question.
And we could spend some time talking about some different hypotheses for that. We also see, as I mentioned, for our class of 2021 cohort, we are seeing some improvement, which is good, and a slight narrowing of the gap, but it's still not where we'd want it to be. And again, if we go with the assumption that all of our students can succeed, we need to be thinking about what is it that's keeping these students from being able to demonstrate their success. So again, here we're thinking about, we have lots of things in place through our safety net program. I think you saw at our title schools where we have our highest concentration of students from low-income households. We're seeing good results, and so we think about how do we kind of take that and expand it across the system. So, our programs, our supplemental curriculum, safety net, good, and we think that there's probably a need to deliver effective practice instruction to our teachers across the system. In particular, we want to get our safety net teachers up to speed, but then safety net teachers working with general ed teachers to be thinking about how do we reach kids who maybe have different learning needs. And so there's a whole series of things all the way from really high quality instruction to those supports that we know kids need. So getting to school, having a meal, someone that's keeping an eye on them. So in the past, we've had a McKinney-Vento kind of contact liaison who was a portion of the day. We now have a full-time McKinney-Vento liaison who's working with students. We'll also be really thinking about how do we ensure that all of those needs that our kids have that are getting in the way of learning are being met so that they can have some success academically as well as socially. So any questions on that?
Just real quick on that. Have you looked at the low income? We look at it by district. Have you looked at it across our schools to see if there's a difference? So you're speaking of Title I. My interest.
Yeah, so that's one of the, when I mentioned that through this process, Our next step
You do,
then
yeah.
is to meet as a team and to dig into the school by school data. And so we've just done that for literacy
Yeah.
and are putting some things in place. And that's what we will do for math following this process as well. So absolutely.
Because similar to when saying that those districts were different above us, that's also an interesting piece to start thinking. Right now we're comparing to greater than 6,500.
Yeah.
If you look across all 295 districts in Washington State, there are several districts that consistently will be above us. They tend to be smaller, but I think there's pieces to learn from that small environment too, and how do we build on those.
Tim Krieger did just pull, and he's working on it for math now, a school by school, all schools by free and reduced and performance, and it gives you this really nice trend line that you predict, and then you can see how schools relate above or below that trend line. So it can help you to see those outliers to start to identify. And we have some of our schools who are outliers, both positive and negative. So that'll be some really exciting work in the future. So again, for race and ethnicity, we are finding that in grade 3, for example, we're in that top tier. 5, we're kind of on the edge, and grade 8, we're in that top tier. So we're performing as well as the highest performing districts for this group of students. Now again, that's not the performance we want, but again, in relation to other districts, we're performing well for our Black African American. I want to stop. Well is relative to the other districts. I want to be really clear on that. Latino, Hispanic students. Again, not quite as quite in that same tier, that same level, but still in that top echelon of districts around the state. So then we get to gaps, and again, these are areas where you ask yourself, what's happening here? Because we have students, the color of your skin should not predict your performance on an assessment. So we are trying to drill down to what is going on, what's happening. And we have now the ability to look at, is it language, is it income, is it something else? But we see persistent gaps for Hispanic, Latino, and Black African American students. Even over time, we see those gaps. So if we look at our class of 2021 cohort, we are seeing some improvement, but the gaps persist. And then as I mentioned, we might have this hypothesis, well, maybe it's language. We have, for example, maybe some of our Hispanic Latino students, they're still in that, still working on language. But even there, when we account for language or income, we still see pretty significant gaps by racial group. So again, you would think that, okay, students who have never been in an ELL program, Hispanic students that language is not and maybe a barrier for, they should be performing as well as any other student in our district, and they're not. So this is, again, where we are starting to think about what's in place. And we know we have good systems in place. We see good results from them. But we also know that we need to dig deeper. And so, as I mentioned, that idea of really looking at professional learning and high-quality instruction for every kid, and then our district-wide equity efforts, I think, are going to start to bear some fruit, too, and really thinking about culturally competent instruction and curriculum. And that's everything from high-quality curriculum and high-quality teaching to relationships that teachers build with students. And it includes making sure that the culture of students is reflected in the curriculum and making sure that kids have opportunities to work together and start to get away from this competitive approach that we have in some of our classrooms. Lots of different ways we can change the way we deliver our instruction to meet the needs of our kids where they are and to improve outcomes. And so we'll be digging into that deeper as part of our equity work. There's a real strong commitment on the part of our directors of school support, our central office folks, and our principals and our teachers, clearly seeing that need and wanting to do something about it. And we're seeing some promising work ahead in that area. So again, as a summary, we as a district are performing very well in relation to other districts around the state, and at the same time we have groups of students who aren't. And so we want to keep working on that, just like we are for ELA, and we see some real promising opportunities that are coming. We didn't mention the dual language program that we're starting to work on that we'll be talking more about tonight. We see that as some opportunity. There's some other work that's happening in special education that we'll be sharing throughout the year, and we're seeing hope. Hopefully optimistic, I should say, is the way we would end this, and more to come.
Thanks, Mike. So as part of the process, we want to make sure that we're capturing, right, Diane's capturing sort of those verbatim questions that came up during the presentation, board comments, and then you're the this time around, right? So all of those will then go to Chris.
So broadly, I agree that we're doing reasonably well. And I will say that most of my comments are actually sort of structural pieces. On the SPED front, I really want to figure out some way to split out specific learning disabilities so we can look at the performance of those programs. And/or I saw something on the specifically designed instruction is just lumped in with everything else. Actually, I'd like to see what SDI does. Mm-hmm. That might be another useful subset to look at.
Chris, can you just clarify that? What do you mean by that?
Well,
what
sorry.
Is SDI?
So right now, SPED means everything from dyslexic to Down syndrome.
I understand that the breakout by specific learning
breaking out by
disability.
SLD.
But what was? I just wanted to make sure I understood this.
Specifically designed instruction
the
was
specially designed instruction part.
That was on slide, I want to say 25. No. Slide 18. So the data reflects all students with IEPs when we're looking at the gap analysis, whether or not they're receiving specially designed instruction in math. While specially designed instruction is doing something, it would be nice to split them out from the kids who aren't receiving specially designed instruction.
Thank you.
And I should say, just to touch on that, when we were talking about that curriculum, we are meeting with special education teachers who teach math in a resource room setting and going, is that working for you? And by and large, they're saying, we're having some challenge around that.
Yeah.
So we're looking at that curriculum with that group, and that is that specially designed instruction you're referring
But wait, I just want to make sure that, can you go back to the slide that we were just on? So I think, Chris, what you're asking is, could we get, so this is showing any student who has an IEP in their math performance.
Right.
This isn't showing students who have an IEP with math goals and are receiving specially designed instruction in mathematics.
Correct. Right.
So and again, I mean, these
and
are...
I don't know how easy it is to break that out, but I'd love to see it.
But that's the request.
I think we can pull out the specially designed instruction for math because many of those students, they have math in their minutes, but many of them are receiving services in a resource room setting.
Right.
And so easy one to say, okay, in our resource room math settings, how are our students performing in relation to everybody else? Because that really is targeted with curriculum. It's an area we know. Is it making a difference?
Yeah.
Now, we have other students that are served in a general ed setting that might have a math IEP. Right. And so that also that'd be a little harder to dig out. But we have, at the secondary level, students, we could pull it by course, resource room math.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. And
it's just one part, though. And
well, as with everything, what I'm loving about these is you're giving me exactly what I want to see. I want to see the opportunity to ask the next question. And the next question that obviously leapt to mind for me on SPED was on those two ends. And SLD is one end of the spectrum. The other sort of end of the spectrum I'd be interested in is seeing it broken up by LRE 1, 2, and 3. But that's the follow-up. It's the question that the data prompts from me. We do see the same sort of progression of the gap. So if you look at this slide 18, we're seeing a gap that's about 40 points in third grade. By the time that you get to 11th grade, it's at least 50, probably closer to 60. The data is noisy. Since we haven't got that many kids who took it in 11th grade. But it's eyeballing it from 3rd to 8th grade, that's a bigger gap. And so SPED kids are falling off the wagon in math, finding how do we keep them in. It's important. Same thing that we're talking about with ELL. Interestingly, low income didn't show that trend at all. Low income has a consistent gap throughout all grade levels. And so they're either on the bus or they're not, but they're not falling off the bus. I'd like to see it start from a higher baseline so that because that gap still troubles me, but it's not a growing gap as the kids proceed through our system.
Correct.
There's so much, and I don't want to keep everybody here all night, so I'm just going to try and...
But our whole goal is for the discussion of this. So
I know,
I do
exactly.
highly
I'm going to keep going.
Continue holding that
Well,
conversation.
no, that's the whole thing. I'm just not going to. I'm not going to dive into the little details. There are some things where when you show me for the gap between blacks and Hispanics and other races for the low income subset, I want to see that for the not low income subset too, because I'm guessing that other one shows a difference, or rather, the gap closes a lot. Anyway.
Yeah, I just want to echo that. It's something I'd like to see in future presentations too.
So basically, when you show something, just show the opposite group, the excluded group. So SLD versus not SLD or whatever.
Yeah, and I think we could. I think it was on different slides, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So there's the students who are, well, you're right.
But
That's
it's all students
It doesn't
versus,
include, yes, non-low income. And we can pull that. It's very easy to pull.
Yeah. So, and it was basically when I was looking at slide 38 was where the next slide.
Right.
That race, ethnicity, low income, I'd just like to see next to it race, ethnicity, not low income.
Not low income, right.
Let's see. Siri, you got any, Eric, any specific stuff to chime in on while I find my next comment? Because I know I've got more.
Siri, go ahead. Go ahead, and I will just add when you're done.
Go for it. Oh, no.
Chris, do you have any more? You can finish up.
Well, I definitely, when we were talking about the low-income analysis, I think Siri's notion of comparing our Title I schools to not Title I schools, I don't think it'll be big enough numbers to compare individual buildings, but Title I versus not Title I, the performance of low-income students in those two settings would be really useful. I really hope that it shows that Title I's, that those kids are getting a big boost, and how do we then extrapolate that? Breaking out SLD, I apparently had a lot of capitals on that. That captures most of it. I mean, it's something where the trends that we're seeing in math, I would like to see the overall trend going upward. That's the one trend I'm missing. It's we're achieving, but we're not improving. And, you know, I guess that's one's reach should exceed one's grasp. That's a piece. I'm not so much worried about any specific gap, but on that one as a whole, what are we working on to improve? So, okay. Mark?
We keep talking about how we want to improve to this percent or that percent, and you go back and you're trying to compare your numbers, you're comparing to other districts. Are we doing any kind of research to see what programs, innovative programs, are out there beyond our neighbors? To look at what's working in Florida, what's working in New York, whatever's, you know, to find out some innovative programs that our neighbors might not be looking at, and maybe that would be the spark that really would light some of these kids to jump. And whether it's in the math or whether it's, for that matter, on language arts, it's the same thing. I mean, the fact that we're not looking beyond our neighborhood bothers me. Maybe it's because I was raised beyond our neighborhood.
So I do want to just chime in on that one. I know that this is the process where we're just collecting board comments and questions, but I do want to say that we do a couple of things, because I just don't want the lingering impression to be that we're not looking at other districts across the country. So we, for example, Mike just came back from a conference. So one of the things we do is we send people to conferences, which is about learning best practice from other districts. So this one was specifically on dual language and achievement of students as part of our research around dual language. So I don't want to get into all the details of that, but that's, you know, learning about how other districts have implemented dual language and what results they have received from that. So one thing we do is attend conferences. We're a member of Western States Benchmarking Consortium, and that's 7 other districts from Western states that we meet with 2 times a year to learn from what they're doing, because they are similar demographic, high-performing districts. There's just 2 things I want to mention. So we can follow up and kind of unpack that a little bit more and give some more examples. But I do just want to assure you that we do that. And Hanover Research is another method we use to do a scan through Hanover of what's happening in other districts, what results they're seeing, and how can we learn from those.
Well, that's what my point is. If in these presentations, whether it's the math, whether it's the language arts, whatever, I would like to hear, you know, what other programs you've looked at, something that's caught your eye, something that you think might be worthy of the district experimenting with, or at least investigating, because it does because if we are having these efforts, let's not hide our candle under a bushel basket. Let's say, okay, we're trying to find what works, and we're looking at things, and then come back and say, look, we looked at it and it's not really working as well as they thought it was.
Yeah.
You see where I'm going?
The other thing I'd add to what Tracy said, we partner with larger organizations to have them give us consultation and oftentimes connect us with some. So two, in particular, we're working with the University of Oregon right now on the idea of tiered systems of support. We have a conference call set up with SWIFT on Wednesday, who consults nationally with districts to look at effective practices from around the country. And so it's not necessarily this district is doing this. It's, as they look across the whole system, they say, here's what we're seeing as effective practices. And that happens in many of our programs, partnering with universities or national organizations that have some.
I think parents would like to know that. I'm sorry, I'm not ahead on. I think parents would like to know that, the fact that we are looking at other programs. We care beyond the numbers, to be quite frank. Mm-hmm. And if we're just looking at our numbers and looking at our performance numbers, that we moved from 85 to 86 this year, well, great. But what are we doing to make it move to 90? And what programs are out there that we might want to consider and kind of open up for what we're doing to better our programs?
So, Mark, hang on one sec.
Yeah.
Part of the ends results in the monitoring process is the retrospective and looking back over that time frame, and to come up with what those focus areas and priorities might be based on what we're seeing here. So I think what you're speaking to is, are there specific focus areas based on what you've seen in the data that you think additional deep dive, digging into, looking into opportunities might be the way to go? So that's what I would pose to you is, in looking at this, what would be your focus areas that you would think would be an area to do so?
Well, to be quite frank, if we're looking at the race gaps, we're looking at the low-income gaps, we're looking at the special education, each one of those categories, we should be looking at what programs are out there.
So actually, this is something where, Mark, I totally agree with you that we should. The thing is, I'm not sure that's part of the ends results discussion. I think that's a work session in math. Maybe, yeah.
Yeah, maybe it should be, to be quite frank, rather than just looking at the damn numbers.
What I'd like to say is, I look at this, and it's clear to me that our pre-K numbers, when they come in, our gap starts there and continues. Yep. So if I look, it's in ELL, it's in special education, it's in Latino, it's in low income, it's in Black African American. You see it actually get a little bit worse in third grade based on that. So there's a piece I keep thinking of. I'm looking actually not at the comparative, but actually looking at the results. And actually, if I look at ranking, low income for pre-kid was ranked 29 out of those 49 districts.
I just want to add to that briefly. We were talking about this today as well. That assessment is an observational assessment conducted by teachers at the beginning of the year. So it's really not a reflection of what's happening. And I hear what you're saying. They're coming in.
Absolutely.
But the skills on that assessment are just worlds apart from what you see in a third grade SBA. So yes, there's a gap, but it's kind of an apples to oranges comparison, if that makes sense.
Actually, though, what my argument would be is not that I'm comparing it to it. It's clear to me that and I understand it's subjective, right, and there's those components. They're working with Innorator. The reality is you saw this in ELA as well, and we know this. Research has shown, right? Solid preschool, solid pre-K learning helps to set up the path going forward. This is becoming clear in looking at this WA Kids that's a piece and that's not directly, we as a district don't do a lot of that work. I mean, we serve some students, special education, we do some Head Start, but we don't have a large population. And the other piece that's never considered with pre-K, Head Start is to 100% federal poverty level. Our low income is to 185% of federal poverty level. So there is a percentage of students that don't truly necessarily have economic access in some regards. So this is something that there is a lot of collective impact models around this and actually working from a broader perspective. And whereas it's not the district's role necessarily at this point, I definitely think it's something we should be thinking about and not just in math. You saw it in, and I think would see it across the board. So I guess that would be my one piece of something just to think about from what the data is telling me, that I see that, and it'd be ideal if we can get them. And so my next question is, do our programs that we currently offer in preschool, do they have the kids be kindergarten ready when they come in?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch the full question. Did they have the kids?
Are they kindergarten ready? On what kids?
I think
How do they
it's
perform?
the same question that came up on
Exactly.
literacy.
So are we being ineffective? And if so, then is there something we can do to help support preschool programs elsewhere? So I think that's one of those pieces. From a comparable concept, when I remember back to our March retreat, when we actually had spoken about how we did this, the goal was to be in the top quartile. And I think as we've gone through this, there's some piece of, it's not that we are just comparing, it's that truly, so where should we be paying attention if we do it from a quartile concept? And that's when I start looking at maybe that focus is low income to really some component of it. Trends, if our 95% is our goal, we've never put a year on that or sort of what the range time frame on that. But if we're only increasing by 1 or 2%, trending wise, we're not going to get there. So I think those are the pieces that, as I look at this, that I still think about and focus on. Then, so there is the piece, I think this can help perform, where do we focus and think about from where we go with it. If we only have 40% passing something, I think there is some question of, okay, that number's got to shift. We just can't stay there. And it needs to shift quick. We don't have 5 years to wait, because those students don't have 5 years to wait. So I guess that's where some of the things that this called out to me to think about. In doing that, I think the equity work is important and very key in going forward. I think that played out in a lot of places. And I think you spoke about even with EL in the sense of what is their context that they come to us? What's their family background that they come to us with? And how do we support that and value it and then use that for launching learning from that component? So I think all those pieces. So some of those wraparound services and those pieces, a lot that I see when I look through is curriculum-based and very in the day. I don't see a lot around how do we build a different type of support. Our PTAs do a lot of that work after schools. How do we even strengthen that piece, even from a math side, or holistically, and how do we bring that in? So I guess when I look through those were the sorts of things that I sort of saw falling out in the data.
Chris, could I? I just want to make a comment and reflect really quickly on a couple of things that were said. I actually think, Siri, some of your questions that you just posed are very similar to the questions that Mark was just posing. And I think there's a difference in the conversation between if the board is truly staying in the governance role, and there's a difference between saying, I wonder if we're doing research on what's working in other places or what the PTA, what the system is, versus I think you should do X, Y, Z. So I think if either of you were saying, I think you should do X, Y, Z, that would be stepping out of the role of policy governance, whereas I don't think anything that you said, Mark, or anything that Siri just said is stepping outside of the role of policy governance. Because what I didn't hear, Mark didn't say, I know there's a district in Alabama or wherever that is doing X, and I think you should do X. So, Chris, I think that wouldn't be part of policy governance end result, versus I think the questions that you were posing about, are we looking and saying what's working in other places, or are we considering systems and including PTSAs and so forth? I think those are open-ended questions that live fine in this process.
Well, yeah.
So I just wanted to get that on the table. I mean, I think that's, and it's then, we're going to send you all of these questions and everything, and then Chris, you'll be able to say, board consensus is these are the areas that we want you to focus on, and these are some of the questions that came up. And I think that that's completely within the bounds of the process from my view.
I think parents want to know not just the numbers. They want to know what are we trying to do to move those numbers.
Oh, I wasn't trying to shut you down on that at all. I do agree with you.
And what are we looking at, and how do we think we can do it, without, you want to think about the process, what programs you're going to put in place, what ones are you considering, what do you think might work, in addition to just going from 94 to 95.
Yeah, but your point is how do we keep a finger on the pulse of research, and then how do we bring the best of that in here and make it work? Is that fair? I mean, the only piece of that broader conversation that I have not, I mean, I know best practice is how this system works, but I just really wish there were some way we could do pilot programs. Test something out, because otherwise you wind up with 1 million initiatives and none of them ever die and no one ever knows what's working.
Well, that's the point of having research.
Yeah,
that's the
Kids
point
was great, yes. But to know when you give one of these, the pilot programs would be a really nice thing to see as far as, and what's your bar for this is working or not?
Well, it's like the Avid programs that we've added.
Yeah.
That's a pilot program, and we've seen how it's worked, and we've seen how well it's worked. And I'll lay you odds, if we took the numbers, those kids' scores and tracked them, we would have a new variable that we haven't really looked at. But my point is, if those programs are out there, rather than just looking at them, maybe we ought to be looking at some pilots as Avid or the others and do them and stop just looking at our numbers.
Yeah.
I'm just going to jump in now.
No, you've been quiet. Go ahead.
I wanted to make this comment because it was about this slide, and it was just, I think somebody referenced this earlier. This slide is interesting to me because the districts, there are different districts that are above us than, or at our level than we often see. And I understand we may have some hypotheses for this, but what I think is interesting about it is that, to me, it suggests that we need an action item would be we may want to be looking at. I guess unpacking what about low, and maybe this would help us unpack what it is about being low income that affects performance. And to me, that is perhaps what is indicative in this data, not necessarily what these districts are doing different, but maybe the low income population groups that they have, and that in our school by school data could help unpack that as well. I'd just be really interested to see that. This slide raises a lot of, it was interesting. It just raises a lot of questions for me.
Well, and I just to add to that, I think there is a sense of what works, and I think there's a sense of scale here too. So a school that has the majority of their students that are low income has a school-wide effort, and everybody's on board. A school that has 7 to 10, 15 kids, to get that to scale across a whole school it's just a different ballgame. But we've had poverty in our system, and we've been working on poverty for decades. And I think you're right, those schools probably have started to scale up and put into place practices that address very specific needs, like vocabulary of students who come from homes that are impoverished, like having your basic needs met and having a secure, safe place. There's lots of leading factors that contribute to students' performance that we're aware of. And you're right, those schools are probably doing some really specific, concrete things that we could learn from. It's really helpful.
There's actually an article in the Seattle Times, I believe, today, Specific Education Lab, that talks about low-income families and working in different things.
Yeah.
I can't remember which school district they highlighted. I'm blanking right now. But I do think you're right, that the numbers make it. The challenge we have is it's a hidden component often. And so if somebody's struggling in math, if my daughter's struggling in math, I could pay for a tutor if I had to. But that's not a guarantee for everybody. So I do think that's a component to it. So
Go ahead, Mark.
Well, and again, as you look at poverty, the idea of why aren't they performing in math? Well, gee, maybe the higher income kids have parents at home that aren't working 2 jobs that can help them with homework or see that the homework gets done. Whereas the parents who are working 2 or 3 jobs, they can't.
Yeah.
They don't have the time because they're just not there, or they're so bloody tired that they just don't have the ability to do so.
And so this is something I have to admit, I work in a public health department. And so when we're talking about all of the gaps, all of these are interesting challenges, but they aren't all equally important in terms of trying the number of kids who are affected. So Black and Hispanic, we talked about those as if they were equivalent challenges. I think, 15% of our population is Hispanic, and 1.5% is Black African American. I'm sorry, there's one of those populations that's a much bigger group where we can help more kids by solving the problem. So, and what I'm concerned about is that we've raised a large number of possibilities without giving you focus on arenas of interest. My personal arenas of interest are low income and Hispanic. Those two, the third being SPED, but the SPED we've got to unpack before we can go much further. But those are the two I'm interested in really digging in further and starting to tackle. And that doesn't mean that any of these groups are mutually exclusive. When Sears is talking about wraparound services, theoretically, that's universal. That's a cut curve effect. If you can come up with the right model, it doesn't matter whether it's ELL, low income, whatever, that level of support works. But for now, in terms of the deep dives, I would focus on those two groups which represent, and actually are significantly overlapping groups within our group, within our population.
So in looking at this and what we've seen, in a year, what would you like to see changed in the data that's being presented? What would you like to have seen moved in a year?
Frankly, I think that there are some numbers that are a whole lot easier to move than others. And we've come back to this several times as we've been going through this. In ELA, we came back to this as well. Moving the numbers early on. All of the trends are slowly declining. If we can move the baseline up in the early years, the K-3 numbers, I don't actually care about what the numbers are when they arrive in kindergarten. I do care about where they are at 3rd grade. At that point, it's sort of you're going to lose.
I'm just going to ask. I'm going to ask Mike. I think that at this point, you go ahead and sit down, because what I see happening is the discussions being directed at Mike, where this is the opportunity for the board to discuss what you all think is the priority, and then to deliver that back to me, so we can move forward. So I just don't want, because it looks like you're. And Mike's doing this, and I just want to make sure that, this is the great part about the new process. It's the board process to have the conversation about what do you all want to agree on.
We'll generally try and do it before 10, but tonight's special.
The focus. And so whether you want to keep the same process that we used last time, which is we took all the individual board comments. If you remember, this is what the board said that you wanted to do tonight. You wanted to raise individually comments and questions. Diane's been getting all of that verbatim. We turn it back around to you, and then there's the board process to discuss and share and determine what do you want the priority focus to be that you're going to deliver back to me.
So I'm going to take a minor step back from what I said I'd like to see. 3rd grade has already got a lot on their plate. Learning to read, reading to learn. That's a transition that matters hugely. Even I'm willing to grant that maybe ELA should take priority at that point. 5th grade, if you haven't got arithmetic, you're toast for the rest of your mathematical career. So I would actually be comfortable making 5th grade our benchmark target for the moment, just to see if we can move the 5th grade numbers. And we've got room to move them. So does that seem reasonable? Sorry, you look as tired as I feel. But I'm not sure I've got a whole lot more useful discussion. I actually feel pretty good about. I do want to say this to Mike. I feel really good relative to previous years about how much you've surfaced out of this without guidance. And now it's like bringing up the stuff that we really want to dig into and find where have we got leverage? Where can we actually focus?
And just to remind the board, so we're able to do this because of the board discussion at the last extended study session in March and what you laid out in terms of what you want. So now we're able to, as a team, go back and develop the ends result reports that reflect that and bring it back to you. So then you have those results and you can say, now here's where we want you to focus. So
let me go back to one.
So you asked about 5th grade. I would say yes, that seems to make sense. That's an endpoint through elementary that you could look at. The other piece, and we actually don't have this one there, but is often utilized, is algebra. But that's a different indicator. So I would make a suggestion for a new indicator that we deal with is actually how many kids have passed algebra by 9th grade, since that is the graduation requirement, more so than the math credit.
How many kids are in each pathway?
Talk to me.
No. How many kids are this is something where your point, the slide that you had, 3 pathways, I'd like to know how many kids are in each pathway at each grade level.
Okay, so just in terms of process,
you write that on feedback.
Since if part of what the board wants to see is new key performance indicators, we defined the key performance indicators on an annual basis, and that drives the reports that we do.
This isn't a KPI. This is really just look at it and decide if it's a KPI. I've never looked at it.
Then put it down as something that we add, and then in March we look at bringing that up and deciding if that's the next step we want to take.
No, I'm comfortable with that.
Fair?
Yep. No, that's fine.
Well, that was because the one piece when I looked at did they pass math in 9th grade, that indicator? I mean, and that was true in ELA. We have 95%. It's not relating really specifically to success. We know algebra is a gateway math to many of our sciences to access. It's a requirement for graduation, if I'm not mistaken. You have to pass algebra and geometry, correct? Okay, so it would make more sense to me almost that we look at shifting what that indicator is, not so much a math credit as it is that they've passed algebra in 9th grade. So that would be one of the feedback pieces I would put on, as I think it would be more useful.
Yeah, I'm supportive of that.
And I would agree that we have reasonable progress in the sense of overall we do very well. It's the exceptions into those subgroups. And if I were to choose a subgroup to really focus low income, and I think Latino, we have some work I think there's a lot. You have the natural leaders. So it'd be interesting to see all of those, to start doing the evaluation piece on those things. Did we move the needle like we expected to? And that's the piece. Whereas it's not qualitative, it is saying, if we do this, we expect X to happen. Well, if X doesn't happen, then you got to figure out why, but give yourself the time frame in it. And that's the piece to me that sort of needs. The trend always concerns me when the trends are flat.
Yeah, well, and that's the other piece. 1 year does not a trend make.
These were 3.
Yeah, exactly. And that's something where, for me, if I was saying for grade 5, 73, 73, 76. And we got a blip where we went up by 3. That's flat enough. I really, in the next 3 years, if we can get 2 of the 3 above 80, I'll believe that we are doing better. It's not that I'm asking you to get to 95. I feel like that would just cause paralysis by setting you up for failure. But if we could say, look, we're really going to focus on moving the needle on this, and how much does it need to move before we believe that that's a trend, not a blip? It's not something where if it went down by that much, we'd write it off as, oh, that's just this year. So, anyway. I'm about to turn into a pumpkin. I've slept poorly 2 nights in a row. I've really only got about 10 minutes worth of consciousness left in me.
I have one. I'll be very brief. I mean, if we're talking about performance, I mean, I would like to see all in this particular slide. I like to see us in the where we are for every other indicator in the top 4 or 5. Now, as far as low income goes, I actually think that if we're setting priorities, I think we, rather than increasing performance, I think we need to. I think our priority needs to be unpacking. Yeah, we need to understand, and I think rather than just focusing on, I know this is end results, but rather, I think to get there, I think the district we need to unpack.
We're not ready to set. You're not ready to set a direction.
I just don't think we well, maybe the staff does, but I don't think the board yet understands the issue. So I think we need to understand it too.
Yeah.
Or begin to. And I'd like to see that as a priority for the board, I guess, now that I'm just talking myself through this. Well,
what specifically are you speaking to?
Sure, thank you. It's hard formulating thoughts at 10:30 at night. I think the board, we as a board need to understand, begin to understand what about low income in this district is driving it. Because low income in and of itself is not a character trait, I suppose. It's a circumstance. And I think as a board, we need to understand what is it that is maybe not common, but what characteristics do our low-income students have that are, I guess, correlated with performance?
I can tell you about my childhood if you wish.
Sure.
Tomorrow.
I know that, and that data. That data is available. There are studies on this nationwide, but I think we need to understand what our district is different than others, and I think we have enough. We should have a large enough sample size that we can start to understand at our district what it is.
Other fact.
Yeah. Honestly, we have about 3,400 low-income students within our district, which is bigger than most districts in Washington State.
Yeah.
So we do have that capacity.
So, Eric, just as an example of what I think you mean by unpacking, we've got details on low income. How long has that student been in our district? They're definitely going to be more migratory than our average, except for the engineers. How consistently is a child free and reduced? That is, there might be kids who are bouncing in and out of that definition through their career. It's something where there is more to be teased out of the data that we have without collecting additional data, just diving in at a deeper level to help us understand where. We would like you to dive in and solve this, but that seems vague. We'd like to understand the problem more so we can help explain the problem to constituents.
How would you act upon it knowing that information? What would that change in the process?
Well, and it's really, to me, it's identifying the kids at greatest risk. That we've got. I don't want anyone to have the impression listening to this that low-income kids are failing. There are low-income kids who are succeeding. There's a difference here. What's going on? What additional risk factors are there associated with low-income kids who are not able to succeed in the system? And how can we help them? Or, for that matter, just turning it on its head, what are we doing right to help the kids who are succeeding? And how can we propagate that sort of experience to the extent that we can take any credit for it at all? How can we propagate that to the kids who are not succeeding in the current system?
If I can just add one thing, I think one wonder I have when we present the data is for all the exception groups, within that group, there are the students who are meeting standard, and then there are the students who aren't meeting standard. And we tend to focus on the students who aren't meeting standard, and what are we doing to help those students. There's also a percentage of students within that group who are meeting standard, to your point. And what we don't do as much is ask the question, what is it about those students who are meeting standard, who are experiencing success, and what's the difference, kind of to Eric's point, between the students who are achieving within that group and the students who aren't, and is that something we can hone in on and
just learn more about where you've got
one I made earlier about ELL students. To talk to them afterwards, what worked for you, what didn't work for you, what
there's
hit
a feedback
home that
piece
really
that would be
made
useful.
The light come on over your head.
So this might be interesting from a linkage concept, actually, and from some of the focus groups. I just know that the focus groups that were done by Puget Sound Equity or Puget Sound ESD on the equity, if you haven't had the chance to read through those in that report, it's fabulous and very insightful too. I think some of the qualitative pieces you're speaking to of what are those challenges within our schools and what we could do differently. And I know that information is being utilized at the district on the equity team and different things, but from a board perspective, it's actually very interesting to read through as well, and have some idea of that component.
It's a good idea.
So I do think that might be the piece. How do we do the linkage? So if those are the questions from a qualitative side, how do we start to ask those questions of our students and families?
In 7.5 hours, I have to take 2 children to jazz band. We have used up my last 10 minutes of consciousness.
I had let Chris know earlier that we can move the program report and the superintendent's report to the November 20 board meeting, given the time. And that was about an hour ago that I let you know that.
Thank you.
So
I mean, I am enjoying the conversation, but I'm not.
No, absolutely, but that's something to think about in the future as we look at the process. For
You
the
scared
end
me,
result
Esther. What do you think
monitoring.
this is good for?
Yeah, I want to echo what Siri said. These are really important discussions to have. I know that we wanted to do it tonight, but in the future, it'd be great if we could start these before 9
Or
o'clock.
the question might be that we actually look at doing it as a work session at one point and have the discussion there to start and then be able to do. So that might be another way that you have a little more time that's dedicated specifically.
Yeah. So,
Not necessarily next week, but something to think about.
But all of that said, I don't know that we've got a whole lot more to say about the math ER.
I'll send you my notes.
That's effective.
Because there's one more indicator I would think we would recommend, and that's remedial.
Yes.
How many students, when they apply to college, end up having to take a math course that's remedial, that doesn't give college credit, just as a way of sort of looking at a final step through the whole process.
That's fair. I will include that in the conversation. But other than that, anybody really dying to add another thing that they can't send to me by email? Okay.
Can I just say
Yes,
one thing, Chris?
go for it.
So the assertion report then that the board now completes, that will be, we would put that on the agenda for the November 20th meeting, and the board would adopt the ER report. That's what we did for literacy, so I just want to make sure
What day is it?
that's the plan.
It's November 6th. Okay, so plan-wise, I will distribute the first draft of this to the rest of my colleagues on the 13th, next week. And you can get comments back to me as rapidly or as slowly as you want, but we'll do a quick discussion on the 20th. I think that's the plan.
And similar to as we did the last time, if there were changes that needed to get made,
Exactly.
we just postponed it for another 2 weeks to be on consent. So it's still open to discussion at that point.
That is perfect. Okay. So with that, we'll close that. The program report and the SOUPS report, we're going to delay. Legislative update, no, we don't need one. Board follow-up, future agenda items, no. Debrief, board member comments, we've already made plenty. So the next board meeting will be on November 20th, 2017 at 5 p.m. with a reception to honor Nancy Bernard. By the way, I forgot to acknowledge this explicitly. Nancy took off a little early because she has to be on the other end of the state at 8 a.m. to teach a class, so she's well excused in her absence for this part of the conversation. We'll have a study session at 5:30, topic being school start times and graduation policy. That'll be next door in the Hughes room. And then at 7 o'clock, we'll have a board meeting here. With that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
Second. Yeah,
Moved by Director LaLiberty, seconded by Director Bleasner. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes. We are adjourned.